and welcome back to the Rewind Room, everyone. The nostalgic podcast where we take trips down memory lane and revisit the things we grew up loving, like physical media, educational TV, music, movies, marketing, fashion, and the games that shaped us. I'm joined, as always, by my awesome co host and friend, John.
How y'all doing, folks? I'm so happy to be back here recording another episode of Rewind Room. We are already into 2026, and we are already starting off really strong. I think our last episode was one of my favorites that we recorded, and to be honest with you, that may be replaced by today's topic, my friend.
Ooh,
If you want to tell us a
yes.
little bit about what we'll be talking about today and why it may replace it as one of our favorites.
I would love to, my friend, and I honestly think the same thing because today we're jumping into the console wars of the early 2000s. And for those of you
Oh,
who do
yeah.
not know, John and I were both born in the late 90s, so this was prime time game time for us.
Yep.
Um, when I say that, I mean PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo were literally battling it out for our interest in living rooms all across the world, really. But before we get into that, John, what kind of gaming do you play today that you think has influenced or was influenced by the console war era that we're going to be talking about right now?
There was a lot of games that I played from that era. I think really, if you kind of look at the whole era, this was an era that was really evolving in terms of gaming because the thing is that, yeah, gaming's been around since probably the 80s. There's been consoles like Atari, then Sega hits the market, and then, of course, Nintendo's up there with like the SNES and the N64 and a lot of those great past consoles. Sega, of course, has the Genesis, which is probably one of the greatest consoles of all time. In fact, I actually had a friend that had the Sega Genesis, and it was a great
Mm.
console. But to answer your question, I think really looking at game wise, for those of you who have heard me talk about this specific series, I think the biggest one for me, especially, and we're going to talk about it a lot in this episode, is probably Halo, the Halo series. And I think the
Which I
reason,
envy.
yeah, the reason I feel Halo revolutionized the game is because Halo was totally different than any game that had really come out beforehand. I mean, of course, PlayStation obviously cornered the market. They had all the games. They had, Grand Theft Auto 3, they were starting with the Uncharted series and a lot of other um
God of War.
God of War. Yeah, thank you. Yep, God of War. And they had so many different games, but really Halo I feel changed it because obviously Halo is a game that you can play in three different ways. You can play that as a campaign, you can play it as a multiplayer, or you can play arcade modes with just some of your friends. You can in the newer versions you have Forge mode where you can basically create a whole map within
Whoa.
the game. I'm not even joking. Yeah, no, this is the stuff that you could do with it. And so I feel like it caused a rift, especially because Halo was an Xbox exclusive, meaning you could not buy that on another console. So it's one of those things. Another game, I think, I'll go to Nintendo. I think, I know this is going to sound a bit trivial because this game came with every copy of the Wii, but I think Wii Sports changed the game
Oh,
because
absolutely.
here's the thing. I mean, the Wii was a console already of its own, but you have to figure too, you got to see what it can do. And Wii Sports basically is the game that's like, let me show you what we can do with this thing. And
Hmm.
basically, let's be real, every game that follows in the Wii's um I don't want to say discography because it's obviously not that, but in their lineup basically follows some form of everything Wii Sports offers in a sense.
Yeah.
Um
Body movement competition.
mhm.
And then they sort of evolved to gunplay where you could either or weaponry
Yep.
you can transform your remote into either a sword or a gun. So if you
Yep.
weren't
Yep.
if you weren't using it physically with your body, you were using it to sort of mimic real life experiences. And the Wii was a
Absolutely.
game changer.
The Wii was absolutely a game changer, but of course, I know a lot of people are going to be upset that oh, you're not going to talk about PlayStation. Of course, I'm going to talk about PlayStation. I mean,
Heck yeah, we're gonna
PlayStation.
talk about PlayStation.
PlayStation had some of the best games under their grasp, and yeah, some of these, obviously, a lot of these crossed over to Microsoft. But you have to figure too that PlayStation is was definitely geared toward the more pro gamers, the more adult gamers, the more teenage seasoned gamers. What I mean by that basically is people who gamed on a regular basis and really
Yeah.
kind of took their stuff seriously because um, of the other two, they're pretty kind of they kind of help you guide through it. The thing with PlayStation, and I think you probably know this, my friend, it didn't really hold your hand. It was one of those that's like, yeah, we'll give you a tutorial, yeah, we'll explain how this game works, but like we're not gonna like give you a whole once over on how this whole system works. Basically, is kind of
Yeah, up
how
until I think like the PS5, because the PS5
yeah,
actually did come with gaming tutorials
it did.
for it. So I think
Mhm.
they finally caught on that it was a little bit lacking in the user-friendly department, but that's also what helped with the exclusivity of it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And so I think for one, I think the thing with all three of these is I think the reason that we're looking at when we look back at it, we see a war is because of the fact that everyone had their preference of
Yeah.
what they wanted to play, and it's had an open room for so many debates and
Mhm.
topics. I mean, you go to school
Yeah.
and you meet a group of friends. Okay, let's take this for example. When I was young, and I was still in elementary school, I remember having conversations all the time about, okay, I played Wii Sports last night. Oh, that's great. Well, I played God of War last night. Oh, what did you play? Oh, I played Halo Combat Evolved. And you had this
Yeah.
whole dynamic of people, and it's not even a competition of which one's the best. It was more of a competition of what do I like as a gamer and why do I feel like it benefits my experience of what I like to play. And I think that was the beauty of the console wars.
And if you had a diverse friend group who, had the opportunity to have multiple gaming consoles or different gaming consoles, you could test the waters. Because I remember going over to a friend's house and trying an Xbox for the first time,
Oh
even though
yeah.
I never owned one, or going over to a friend's
Hmm.
house and playing the PS2 for the first time,
Oh
or the
yeah.
Wii. Every introduction I had to the current gaming console that I currently own was because someone showed me gameplay. I either
Yes.
went to their
Yes.
house or whatever. So it was highly community based when it came to the influence it had on us and the decision making it had on the consumer altogether. It was very community
Yeah.
based.
100%. And that's really how I feel about it as well. I was kind of in the same boat you were because the first time I ever saw the game Wii Sports was at a friend's house because my friend
Hmm.
had a Wii,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, oh, we'll go play outside on the trampoline, we'll go do something, and then they said, do you want to play the Wii? And of course, when you're a little kid, you don't really think that Wii as a game console. So you
Yeah, you're
start you
laughing at
start
the
crack
name altogether.
you're laughing at the name altogether. And so the thing is that, then they show me what it is. And then I remember seeing commercials for this thing. And I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah.
remember, I'm gonna delve into this real quick before we get into the main thing. Do you remember the marketing for the Wii and how big that
Oh
was?
my
And
gosh.
like every time you saw it on the television, it was the iconic ad of the two Japanese salesmen with the remote bowing and showing all the crazy cool features. And I
Yeah.
just remember that was the time I was like, I want that.
Yeah,
And I think that's
for
the first
sure.
time I ever said that about a video game console because I never really played video games up to that point. But then when
Yeah.
I saw the Wii, that was the first time I was like, I want that. And it was the same with the PlayStation 2. And I got a PlayStation 2, I think maybe a year or two after that. Because you have to figure PlayStation 3 was already big on the market, but the
Yeah.
PS2 was still so coveted as well.
Yeah. And we'll
And
talk about this later too, but the
yeah, we
PlayStation
will.
3 was also not affordable for a lot of people.
It
So
wasn't.
if you could buy the Wii and still have the same gaming experience versus an experienced gamer with the PS3, you were going to do that because you would save yourself maybe sometimes 300 to 400 bucks.
Hmm.
Another selling point of the Wii was that you could create your own me. And for those of
Oh
you who are
yeah.
not familiar, it's basically your own personalized character that you create yourself. And really, that was one of the first times that you could see that besides, a Sims game or something like that. Like it
Hmm.
really brought you as the player into the gaming system and gaming world.
100%. And I think the thing with Nintendo was they've always been very, family friendly oriented. Now,
$100%. Yeah.
that's not to say that they didn't release mature games,
Yeah.
because we would see this eventually happen,
Yeah.
but they very much catered their experience, and Nintendo in general usually kind of caters to more the family friendly experience.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, I think, the biggest push about that, because you go to a store and you want a PlayStation or Xbox, mom and dad are probably going to look at you a bit and probably, kind of decide what they feel about that. Whereas they're almost always going to say yes to a Wii. Let's be real
Yeah.
about that.
Well, yeah, it was a family communal thing, whereas a PlayStation or Xbox, it was one of those things where if you were lucky, you were getting it on Christmas on layaway or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. So, um, but no, it's really cool. But it's interesting to see how when the Wii entered the picture,
Mm-hmm.
how the atmosphere around it was kind of big. Now, here's the
Yeah.
thing, and I'm going to clarify this right off the bat. Nintendo has been huge already for many years. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking
Yeah.
in the 80s, they may have actually been the god of the video game market.
Yeah. Yeah.
They may have been with Sega.
Well, they even started back in 77 in Japan, so even since the 70s, they've sort of been rocking it out by creating different consoles that are for a variety of people too. And then PlayStation enters the game almost 2 decades
Mhm.
later.
And don't forget, Nintendo also started off as a playing card company as well.
Oh, that is
So,
so cool.
did you know this?
I did not. That
Oh,
is so
wow.
cool.
So I'm going to ask you something, and this is not a part of the fun facts and trivia section, but
Bonus
it may be a bonus, but take a crack at this just real quick. See if you can guess the year Nintendo was founded.
was founded. Oh man, it's probably going to be something wacky like 1933 or something.
1933?
Yeah.
You really think that's the answer? You got to go back a little bit further.
Further? Oh man. Like 1800s further, or am I jumping a little too hard? No
Take a guess. Take a guess.
way.
Take a guess.
1891.
1889.
What? Are
Nintendo was
you
founded on
kidding me?
September 23rd, 1889 in
What?
Kyoto, Japan, originally named Nintendo Kopai. The company was established to produce the market handmade flower playing cards. It transitioned into various businesses before finding its niche in toys and video games in the 1970s. So
What?
Nintendo has been around for over 100 years.
Yeah, that's what, like 140 years right
Yeah.
there?
There's a
Oh my
reason I didn't
gosh.
include that as a fun fact in trivia, because you would have never
Oh
gotten that.
man.
As much as I would have
No,
loved to see it,
man.
I had to keep it as part of the episode.
Oh man, that is
I
insane.
know it's wild, right? So, but to get back on track now, the thing with Nintendo was GameCube is an interesting console.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is, I mean, yeah, it was innovative as it included disc, but they didn't go to the CD-ROM. They went to that little small
The
thing,
compact disc,
the
yeah,
little
the very
small, the
compact
the
one.
little small compact, yeah.
Yeah.
And they still weren't willing to really go to that next level, because you have to figure N64 was already still a cartridge-based device,
Yeah.
while PlayStation and the Sega Jet and Sega were already going to CDs,
Yeah.
compact discs. And so it was just an interesting time. But I really feel that um it's kind of like you have these two giants that are already competing with each other, being Sony and Microsoft. And then now you introduce the Wii into that, and then that changes gameplay forever.
Yeah.
Really, it
Yeah.
does.
So, for context, also in
Yep.
2005, Microsoft came out with the Xbox 360,
Oh, yeah.
which I know that John, you loved, and I didn't really have the opportunity to play as much as I would
Yes.
have liked to. And then in 2006, just a year later, or actually a couple months later, Nintendo and PlayStation both released their own consoles, Wii and PS3.
Oh,
But
yeah.
now, as you know, PlayStation started back in '94,
Yep.
and then Microsoft in 2001 with the original Xbox.
Yep.
And they were new to the console game because Nintendo had built an empire and apparently so through the name back in 1889.
Hmm.
But that being said, the last console released by Nintendo prior to the Wii was the beloved GameCube. And like you were saying, it had its own set of issues. The atmosphere was dedicated to PlayStation, Microsoft fans who would most likely already be Nintendo fans because of how long Nintendo has already been around. So it
Yeah.
didn't even feel like it was a three-way rivalry. It felt
No.
like it was a two-way rivalry with Nintendo just watching on the sidelines, even though Nintendo was really controlling the game.
Hmm.
Um, and in my case, I had a PS1 and then a PS3 and a Wii. Whereas I think, like yourself, you had an Xbox and a Wii. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's very difficult to find people who have all three. Do you know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah.
very expensive. I think
Nowadays you'll
most
probably find them, but back then,
now,
no.
yeah. Back then, no. And most families who had a gamer child either had a Wii or a PlayStation and an Xbox, or a Wii and a PlayStation or Xbox. And then that was really for those who could afford it. Of
Yeah.
course, let's not forget that these consoles were not cheap, as I've mentioned a couple times
Oh no.
already.
No.
Adjusted to inflation, the PlayStation, the original PlayStation 3, is adjusted to inflation to 2025, 2026, $760 to $930, depending on how much space and storage you have. So just think about it. Would you spend $1,000 for a gaming console nowadays? Probably not. Xbox adjusted for inflation was 460 to 640. So you see a huge it's a
Yeah.
gap. It's a gap
Oh, it's a
between
huge gap.
PlayStation and Xbox, and then even more so with the Wii being 388 to 402. So it makes sense that the more economical uh, console would be what's the most popular for families, and we'll talk about it later. But for unassuming groups like senior citizens and hospitals and whatnot.
100%. And my gosh, those figures are insane.
Oh man.
It's kind of
Oh
like
man.
it's like now asking people to pay $1,000 for a brand new phone, you know? It's like where's the line? There it's like my gosh, it's just surprising to see that a console's worth that much, but then again, it's crazy to see that there were actually people more than enough who were willing to
Yeah.
pay that $1,000 price tag just
Yeah.
to stay loyal to PlayStation.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate too because you can tell when these companies started shifting because of greed. And it is competition, but also they have to consider the audience. They have to consider the viewers and the gamers themselves. And half the time people couldn't afford these gaming systems, hence the reason why they would wait till the second or third release half a year to 2 years later.
Yeah, and the thing too that I notice as well is that it almost seems like PlayStation was kind of like the Cadillac of
Yeah.
gaming consoles. The Xbox was kind of that in between. They offered a lot of the same
Hmm.
library, and then of course, you have hardcore Xbox enthusiasts for, games like Halo
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And then now you also have Nintendo, which technically should be considered the bottom line, but they really aren't because of how revolutionary they were and the market they were
Yeah.
catering to. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like it makes sense that Nintendo, I don't know if I want to say they won the console war, but they definitely had a lot of bragging points in that war for
Yeah.
sure
I
because
mean, they're also currently winning too, in my opinion.
no, right now they're absolutely winning.
Yeah.
Even though the Switch 2 is a
It
console
was a
that I don't
flop.
think I'll ever buy,
Yeah. No, yeah.
but still, and you'll never believe, but the Switch 2 is one of the highest selling consoles of all time.
What?
Yeah.
Oh man, people are willing to pay $500 to $600, but then again, people were willing to
People
pay
were
almost a
willing to pay
thousand.
close to a
So
thousand for a PlayStation 3. So
yeah,
it really depends. I just didn't see a lot of worth in it, and also the games are
yeah.
so jacked up in price. At least
Oh
PlayStation's games
yeah,
were somewhat affordable. Yeah, you're
yeah.
paying a lot for the console, but at least you can buy the games affordably. With the Switch, you can't. So that's like
No, yeah,
one of the biggest things. But we'll get into that a bit later.
yeah,
Just because obviously the Switch 2 is a major game changer for it, and it has set up some crazy records.
yeah,
But
yeah. It wasn't a part of the console wars that we are currently talking about, But speaking of said console
Yes.
wars, specifically the ones from our youth, how do they differ from what we are seeing currently? Like compared to the Switch 2 or compared to, say, the PS5 or the Xbox One S?
I gotta be honest with you. I think Nintendo, like you said, is winning right now.
Mm,
If we're still looking at consoles, the problem is that a lot of gameplay has shifted from consoles to PC gaming.
yep.
And so now
Yep.
there's not really a market, or everything's becoming cross-platform now to where
Yep.
you can own whatever console you want and you can play the game on said console and play with all of your other friends. Now, is this
Hmm.
convenient? Absolutely, it's convenient.
Yeah.
And even I was asking for this back in the day. When I had an Xbox, I had friends that had PlayStations. We couldn't play online together,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think looking at it there's not that same sense of camaraderie and community I feel like that the
Yeah.
console wars offered, because one thing I noticed about the console wars is it wasn't necessarily a hardcore war of, oh, this is better, you suck. It wasn't really a war of that. It was more of, for lack of a better term, a cold war, because what it was is it was just companies competing against each other, and it created conversation between people, and people formed their own friend groups and communities based off
Yeah.
of what they like to play. Now, again, is it really all that inclusive? Not really, but at the same time, it was, because really you got to bond over, I like these games on this console. Let's be friends. And I
Yeah.
think also the thing too is that when you look at how this war played out, it wasn't necessarily a war of I'm better than you. It was a war of I like what I like. Oh, that's cool. This is what I
Yeah.
like. And then you offer a
Yeah.
little bit of insight, and it creates conversation and it creates
Yeah.
community.
And the
Really is, I felt, what it
conversation
does.
also shifted from the gaming console to the games themselves because now people rarely talk about the console and more so talk about the game that they're currently playing because of the accessibility due to online features, online gaming, and free online gaming with in-app purchases or in-game purchases.
Yeah.
You know, you could play some of the biggest titles known to date on any console, and it doesn't matter the console itself. So the brand identity sort of disappeared and it
Yeah.
turned into like what game are you playing,
Yeah.
or what company, gaming company are you supporting? I'm not talking about console, I'm talking
Mhm.
about, like, say, Ubisoft or Blizzard.
Mhm.
And then the tone also shifted from, and now I'm talking about, like, say, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. It shifted from how can we present ourselves so that people want us to they'll buy anyway. So let's just hike up the prices.
Mhm. 100%. And I think that that's a big part of it too. And also, there's not really anything major or revolutionary now about
No,
modern consoles. I
unfortunately.
mean, let's look back at the PlayStation 2, for instance. The PlayStation 2 was the first console that allowed you to play DVDs on it. And I'm talking
Yeah.
DVD movies.
Yeah.
And that was huge, because you have to figure, at the time, DVD players were notoriously
Oh,
expensive.
heck yeah.
And the PlayStation 2 was probably at the time the most affordable DVD player at the time, to where I'm
Yeah.
betting you, and please comment if you did this or let us know in some way. You went to your parents to try and convince them to buy a PS2, and your marketing push was, hey, it can play DVDs. On the weekends, you can watch movies on my PlayStation, and I can
Mm-hmm.
play video games all day
Yeah.
long.
Yeah. Literally, and you can download the Netflix app, mom and dad. So for date night, you guys can order your favorite movies.
Yeah, I don't think the PS2 had that, but that was the PlayStation 3. The PlayStation
Oh,
3 had
you
that
know
for
what? The
sure.
Wii had Netflix.
The Wii
The
also
Wii
had
had
Netflix too.
Netflix. Yeah,
They
that's what I was
kind of
thinking
came
of.
in
Sorry.
late to the. No, you're good. They kind of came in late to the game, actually, because they didn't
Yeah.
start off having Netflix. It wasn't until, I want to say, maybe when Netflix really started to blow up, especially through Xbox, that's when PlayStation and Sony jumped on the bandwagon, excuse me. But on the box that my Xbox 360 came in, one of the big things it has on there is Netflix. And then
Ooh,
when the
that's nice.
PlayStation 3 Slim came out, Netflix was there again.
Oh,
And it was the
okay.
same, and then the Wii and so on. So it
Yeah.
could be possible it was on all three and we just didn't know it,
Okay.
and
Okay.
whatnot. But no, it was interesting. And then Xbox, you got to figure, also pioneered the game with creating online gaming, really.
Yeah.
Or okay,
Really.
maybe they didn't create it, but they
They
really heavily
capitalized on it.
they capitalized on it. I mean,
Yeah.
Xbox Live was huge. I mean, that was
Oh
one of
yeah.
the reasons why Xbox, even though it didn't do as great as the PS2, still sold pretty well.
Yeah, I mean it did so well that it inspired PlayStation to basically reconfigure their original blueprint for the PS3 and included online gaming. So were it not for Microsoft, PlayStation wouldn't have included it themselves.
Exactly. And the other thing with PlayStation is they just have such a massive library of games that it's like there's something there
Yeah.
kind of for everyone, no
Yeah.
matter what you're into. And Xbox, with creating online gaming, and then like you said, they when the PS3 comes out, PlayStation creates PlayStation Network, PSN. And
Yes.
I don't know if you remember back in the day, PSN capitalized on that because Xbox Live you had to pay for. PSN back in the
It
day
was
when it came out
free.
was free.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the days when
Mm-hmm.
PSN was free?
Heck yes. It wasn't until I got the PS4 that I had to start paying $90 a year, 60 to $90 a year.
Exactly. I wish PSN never shut down because that's literally
Mm-hmm.
how I played most
Yeah.
of my online gaming was on the PlayStation because it was free.
Same.
All I had to do was just
Same.
sign up with an account, lie about my age, and then go play games.
It was literally just the era of Black Ops, multiplayer online
Oh
gaming, and
yeah.
then uh, I don't know, they just took it away for the sake of making an extra what, billion bucks? No, I'm kidding.
No, I hear you. I hear you 100%. But the other thing I noticed too is that when the Wii comes out, I mentioned earlier that I feel like that's kind of when the evolution stopped, and I think I mentioned that
Mm,
even before, like when we
yeah.
were just talking earlier, is because the Wii creates the motion remote, and the thing is that
Hmm.
now it almost makes it to where you in a sense are the controller. You're using that
Yeah.
thing to guide the gameplay. You play the game as though you're actually doing the activity,
Yeah.
And the thing with that is at that point, it became less about how can we innovate and make bigger to how can we be similar.
Yeah.
Because at that point,
Yeah.
that's when Xbox releases Connect with the
Hmm.
Xbox One.
Yeah.
And then Sony releases the PlayStation Move, which, let's be real,
Hmm.
is somewhat a copy of the Wiimote.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Kinect didn't do as well as they thought it would. Neither did the PlayStation one,
No,
which I completely always forget the name of. So thank you for reminding me of that. But that's just how game changing the Wii was, literally copying the technology for it. It wasn't copying, like the online features or anything. It was literally copying the point of it, which is physical movement.
yeah, exactly, 100%. And then after that, then Nintendo really doesn't innovate anymore because then they bring the Wii U, which is basically just a copy
Oh, that was a
of the
flop.
Wii and the N64, basically, kind of in a nutshell, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. It had a little gamepad. I mean, there were some fun games on there,
Well,
but
it was a
I see.
blueprint. The physical console itself was a blueprint for the Nintendo Switch, except for you were able to detach the controllers with the new Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
So I see the vision that they had for the Wii U. They just released it way too soon, in my opinion.
100%. And the fact that the Wii U, you still need a console to play on it was also
Yeah.
kind of a big, tough thing. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, you
that's a
had
good
the
point. Yeah.
gamepad, but you still had to be within proximity of the console. So that made it
Oh,
tough
wow. Yeah. Okay.
and whatnot. And so, but then the Switch comes along, and now it's both a console you can play on the TV and it's a handheld.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Keeping the
um,
physical movement, but also staying true to the original intent of a handheld device.
100%, yeah. And I'll admit, I'm not the hugest fan of the Switch library, but I do love what they have. I mean, it's a lot of classic Nintendo stuff. I love
Yeah.
Mario Kart 8. I love Super Mario Party.
Yeah.
I love Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. A lot of just fun games on those console on that console.
With the
And
online features, though, Nintendo did take it a step up by allowing you to pay, I think, like $40 a month for their membership so that you have
right.
access to games from prior consoles. So technically, with the
Yes.
pass that I currently have, I can play Game Boy games on my Switch. I can play a
Hmm.
lot of N64 games or Sega Genesis or
I was gonna say Sega's library is
NES.
available too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have access to all of Nintendo or a lot of Nintendo's old video game library, which is a leg up because I don't think that there's a feature on, say, the current PS5 that allows me to play like, say, Liberty Stories
Yeah.
on the PlayStation.
Yeah, 100%, and I think really at the end of the day, the thing with a lot of these consoles was, there was a certain sense of loyalty and fan base around
Yeah,
every single one of these. I
yeah.
mean, you look at people who are PlayStation loyalists, and they will often try to knock you, not you,
Oh, I
try
didn't get
to.
to the knock you part. I would never knock you for not liking PlayStation.
Okay, good. Would knock you for being an Xbox or Nintendo person. It was just how the competition
Yeah,
went, and it was vice versa with the others. I
yeah.
feel like, especially for me, the reason I was a bigger Xbox person was obviously because I'm a Halo fan, and Halo's
Mm.
only offered on was only offered on the Xbox for many years. I think they're trying to make a push to get that on the PlayStation now, though, from what I'm understanding.
Ooh, that would be
So
amazing.
if that happens, you may be able to experience the love and joy of Halo, which would be
Absolutely.
cool. But it was also interesting that it was an Xbox exclusive, and I think the thing is that that's really how they sold a lot of their units was that one game. And
Mm.
the thing I loved about Halo was the storyline was absolutely perfect. And the thing is, yeah, it's a mature game. It's violent, but you're killing aliens, and that's the thing. And that's the where the fun part of Halo comes in. And the thing that I personally love about Halo is it's one of those games. It was one of the few first games that allowed like a four screen multiplayer, and also allowed for the invention of LAN parties. LAN
Mm-hmm.
parties were huge, and I remember being a part of so many. You bring your Xbox, you bring your game, you bring your controllers, and then you hook a bunch of them up in a room, and then you can play like a massive um multiplayer game with just the people in that room.
That is too cool. That is
It
too
is
cool.
so
Definitely
cool.
something I missed out on as a
Oh
kid.
yeah, that was the
Uh,
best part about Xbox was the LAN party. I think you can do it with PlayStation as well, but it's
mm,
a much different setup.
okay.
Xbox was kind of the pioneer of that whole thing. And then
Right.
I
Okay.
feel like people who were Nintendo loyalists, I'm gonna say this, were either geeks or nerds or young children.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, adults who had grown up playing Nintendo who, are constantly um updating their console inventory.
100%. And to move on just a little bit, obviously it's madly wild to see, how this war kind of contrasts with what's going on now. And
Yeah.
now I feel like there's not really even a war. It's mostly just player preference really now is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed, especially from the transition of one era of gaming to the next, often a lot of other companies would end up losing their footing, as I mentioned with when the Wii came out, and then they would
Yeah.
start to fall behind. And I think the
Yeah.
company that fell behind the most was none other than Sega.
Okay.
And I'm just going to say this real brief. I'm not really going to get into it because Sega did die off before the 2000s. I think the biggest thing with Sega is they couldn't really keep up with the demand that PlayStation and Xbox were offering.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And as much as we love Sonic the Hedgehog and all these other games that Sega offered, I
Yeah.
feel like they just really couldn't keep up, unfortunately, because of the
Well,
fact that there's such a high demand for all these new things that Sony and Microsoft are pioneering, and even Nintendo, that Sega was just like, we can't keep up with that.
how many people do you know have ever played a Sega Dreamcast? I've never
right?
met anybody. I've never met
Oh,
anybody who
I
played
played
the
I
this.
played Dreamcast.
Well, there you go. There, you're one person, but out of the many people that I've met, like the
True,
chances of
true,
you meeting
true.
somebody who's played a Dreamcast very low. Same thing with the Genesis.
Hmm.
Now I have the ability to play the Sega Genesis because of the membership with the Nintendo Switch I currently have. But
100%,
I
yeah.
mean, those two consoles I feel like are always forgotten because they just couldn't keep up, like you're
Sadly,
saying.
yeah. And then you have other gaming companies like Atari who eventually would go under,
Oh
and
yeah,
they were
absolutely.
a giant. They were the biggest thing in gaming at the time. They were bigger than Sega when they were in the 80s.
Yeah, well, from I would say the 80s to maybe 1999, innovation was the most important thing. And then 2000 to maybe 2007, innovation was still very important, but
Yes.
it was put to the side with specs and hardware. And then after 2009, bring in 2010, very little innovation, and it was
Yes.
just push for, hey, let's get money. Let's price the PlayStation 5 at $600. Let's
Yep.
price the Xbox One at $300. Let's price
Yep.
the
Yep.
Nintendo's
Yep. Yep.
two Nintendo Switch 2 at $600. Now it's all
And
about the
let's make all the
bank.
games close to $100 each.
Oh my gosh. Oh, but not only do you have to do that, let's add in-app purchases, in-game
Oh,
purchases. Let's
DLC.
yeah, let's have them pay for the campaigns. Let's have them pay for skins and gun skins, and at this point it's just
Oh, paying
how
for
much they can
gun
rack up.
paying for gun skins, I think, is the dumbest thing out there. And I will say that again. It is the
It is.
dumbest, most ridiculous thing.
It
And
is.
you can take that to the bank. I don't care if y'all are mad at me. It's the stupidest thing. Remember when we had to earn
Earn
those?
it.
And it
Mm-hmm.
was to the point where most people got so frustrated that they just played with a regular gun and only the pro of the proest gamers had those skins.
Yeah,
And
I
the
mean,
only way you could get it is if you picked up their weapon.
either you
If you were
picked up
lucky
their
enough to kill
weapon
them.
or you unlocked it by doing a certain amount of kills,
Yes.
like having kill streaks, doing
Yes.
all of these things, working towards a goal. Whereas now you just have to ask for your mom and dad's credit card if you're a kid and swipe it
Exactly.
or insert it or whatever, insert the info, and then there you go. You have a skin that would have otherwise taken you a month to get if you worked for it.
It's so dumb because all you have to do is have a bank account and you can have what everyone else has. And don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I get it, but it's kind of
It
like
takes the
where
fun away
it
from it,
takes
you
the fun
know?
away from it and it also takes the value of earning something away from it.
Yeah,
And I know
yeah,
that's going to sound crazy because I know it's kind of like, well, why should I be learning virtues from games? I'm not saying learning virtues. I'm just saying common sense. And I think that
yeah,
that's one of the biggest common sense things is that in life you have to earn a lot of things,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
don't just get what you want when you want it all the time. And so
yeah,
that I think was another thing. And now with all this with this thing, I think it makes it to where it takes the fun away, but it also takes away the idea of earning something,
yeah,
and working hard for it. And you felt accomplished when you did it. You don't feel accomplished now. All you feel like is, oh,
yeah.
check out how cool my skin is. Yeah, you
Well, if
probably paid
anything,
$29.99 for it.
yeah, it's bragging rights that, oh, hey, I have the money to purchase said
Oh,
number of
sure.
skins, or purchase XYZ skin. Where back in the day, if you saw somebody with a very rare skin, you were like, whoa, how many hours did they play? Like they must have been on the game for 20,000 hours or something like
Especially if
that.
they had a
Now it's like,
gold
oh, he
skin.
paid 50. The metallic gold you had, well, that's
Yes.
depending on the game, you had different perks, and sometimes the prettiest ones required like days upon days of work. I remember working for my gold skin in Black Ops 1,
Yeah.
and just running through Nuketown with a freaking gold gun was the coolest thing
I
ever.
was gonna say,
And
go ahead.
oh no, and I was gonna say, and now it's just you can. I haven't played a Call of Duty game in over 4 or 5 years, but now I assume you just have to pay for it, and that's it. That's all you do.
Yeah, exactly. And like what I was just gonna say, so you actually were able to unlock the gold skin?
I unlocked all of them because I played with my brothers on the same console,
Oh
so
man,
I didn't have to put in. We basically cut the manpower in thirds,
well,
but
go ahead.
being able to play it, no one else knew.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is I never got a gold skin. The closest I got was the red camouflage, which is pretty heavily down there, but that was
Yeah,
the
I had all the
farthest I got.
camouflages.
Yeah, that was the farthest I ever got. And then after that, I had no real skins. So people know if you don't have skins, either you're a noob or a casual player.
Yeah, the only issue with PlayStation that I did have when I was younger was the
Mhm.
second you create a gamer tag, you're stuck with it pretty much for life unless like you do
Oh,
something
yeah.
about it.
Or unless you
So
create another account.
if you create another account, but at the time when you're a kid, the idea of having an email was just, it went over my head. So
Oh,
it was a little
yeah.
bit too savvy for me. But if I had my own account, I probably wouldn't have gotten the gold skin myself just because I was more dedicated to playing than I was to excelling and
Mm.
improving my loadout.
Do you remember when you came up with your gamer tag? And do you remember when you were a kid, you thought it was the coolest thing? Do you ever look back on it now and you're like, what the hell was I thinking when I wrote this?
So the first time I was able to do a gamer tag was with a PS3, and I actually didn't end up naming it because the PS3 was sort of gifted to my brother, but by extension, me and my youngest brother
Yeah, yeah.
also got to use it. So his his first gamer tag was
Oh.
Guns Kill People XX.
That's actually dope. That's actually dope. I'm not gonna lie. That's actually dope. It's
And
hilarious, but it's actually kind of cool.
and then he for some reason was able to change his gamer tag because you can change your gamer tag like once every 2 years or
Oh,
something like
sure.
that.
Yeah, especially yeah.
He changed it to a saying in Spanish that he misinterpreted,
Oh boy.
and let's just say it left a bad impression on us as gamers on that console
Oh
because
boy.
he did not interpret it correctly. So
Okay.
basically, I will bleep it out, but
Okay.
basically it was chingon, which
Okay.
in Spanish means badass. But he didn't
Oh my.
know he didn't know that meant. So for years I had the gamer tag badass.
Oh. Oh my God. That's incredible.
Oh man, what a story. What a story.
Like, and then what happened when he found out? Like how
He
did
was
that go?
thoroughly embarrassed, and then he changed it to like Sudsy Rocket or something like that.
Oh my gosh. Oh
I can
my
actually check
gosh.
because I have the PS3 Slim that we used as kids in
Oh my
2009.
gosh, that is
Yeah.
hilarious. No, I take your word for it, I believe. That is hilarious. Okay, so my gamer tag, so on the Xbox, I was infatuated as a kid with James Bond. I loved the James Bond movies. I still love the
Okay.
James Bond movies. Even though you're all going to be upset to hear I still have not seen No Time to Die. I'm going to watch it soon. So please,
I
no
haven't seen it either.
spoilers. Okay, cool. Thank you. But basically, what ended up happening was I named myself JC 007 Halo 2N. Try to
That's
make
not bad.
sense of it. It's
That's
not
not bad.
bad. It's not
But what's
bad.
the N?
I don't know. I just threw an N on there. They had to be a certain number of characters. I just threw an N. I don't know. I really don't know why. I don't know why I called it Halo 2. I mean, Halo 2 is a great game, but I hadn't played it at that point. Um, and
Well,
of course,
maybe Halo without the two was already taken.
maybe, who knows? But there was that, and then my PlayStation gamer tag was Toy Guy 22.
Okay, that's a little bit. That's funny.
Yeah, and it had a picture of Buster in the thumbnail from Arthur
Oh, okay. Okay. That's actually pretty
doing
cool.
this, the peace
Okay.
sign. It had a
Yes, yes.
picture of
Okay.
Buster doing that. So I was like, okay.
From the
And
picture day episode?
no, not from the picture day. I wish, but he didn't do a peace sign. I think it's just a
Oh, that's
promotional
right.
photo of him just smiling and throwing up a peace sign.
Oh, that's too
Toy
funny.
Guy 22, as a little Easter egg, was actually the email I believe Arthur used in the episode where he's trying to find
That's
a where
right.
he's trying to find a book that he's trying to find the ending to, but every time he keeps coming up short.
Okay. Okay. Actually, okay. No, I was confusing that with another episode. I'll have to rewatch that one.
Yeah. But well, that's a conversation for another day. But
Yeah, yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
I think that's where I got that from. And not gonna lie, I got hazed like crazy in online play.
Oh man, I
Hey,
can
look
only
at this
imagine.
toy guy dude. Hey, bro, come on. Hey, what's up, man? Hey, what's
What
up?
kind of toys do you play with, man?
I actually did have somebody ask me that one time.
Oh man, I can only imagine because for those of you who did not experience or have the pleasure of experiencing online game chat,
Oh my
it was
God.
some of the most toxic people, and everyone was like under the age of like
It
13,
was
14,
cooked.
saying the most vile things. And I'm talking about the worst of the worst things. And sometimes every now and then you'd have like a 20 to 30-year-old guy playing along with it as well. But oh man, if you had Saints ears, that was the worst place to be, let me tell you.
Oh my gosh. I will never forget when I first logged on to play Modern Warfare 2 online. I got bullied to hell and back, basically.
Oh,
And
man.
I'm not even exaggerating. I got bullied to hell and
Oh,
back. It
man.
was that wild, but oh my gosh, it was just wild. You just can't imagine. But I feel like a lot of them really fell behind because they just weren't willing to innovate anymore. They were just trying to
Yeah.
be too similar. And I think when you try to be similar, you lose that sense of what made you popular in the first place and what
Yeah.
made the console world so diverse. And
And
that's
then
what's a shame.
we should absolutely talk about the exclusivity and how
Oh, true. Yep.
that was a weapon for it. And now, like as you were saying, because they stopped innovating, the innovation itself was also an exclusivity or an exclusive perk that people looked for.
Yep.
So when you take those things away, um, what makes things worth owning now? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, especially when you look at it in a brighter way, it's kind of like, really all they're doing is they're just saying, "Hey, we can offer you the same experience that this other console has," but it's like, can you really?
Can you really? Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's kind of like, okay, you want to try and be like Nintendo? Sure, make all the kiddie games you want.
yeah,
Make all the fun, Sonic the Hedgehog, Minecraft, all that kind of stuff. But it's like, really, is it the same though? It's
yeah,
kind of like, yeah, it's different. Yeah, there's people that are going to jump on that bandwagon, but you're never really going to be the same. I think the problem with trying to be the same is you lose your sense of brand identity, really. You
100%,
lose what made you popular as a
100%.
company. I mean, Sony was popular because they marketed to pro gamers and they marketed to people who wanted the newest features.
Yeah,
Xbox marketed to people who loved their game library, specifically Halo. Yes, but obviously, and they also marketed to people who who like to do stuff like LAN parties or people who like to really
mm,
play online and have that bigger experience. And Nintendo really catered to the family community.
yeah,
The thing is that now they're all trying to cater
to
to
everybody.
a mass audience
Yeah,
that now it's not even so much about, okay, what do I like about this? What kind of a gamer am I? To
yeah,
I'm just somebody who likes to play games. And that's not a bad thing either. But
yeah,
at the same time, I feel like the reason I push the idea of the diversity being lost is because now there's no room for really like fun conversations. There's no room for
yeah.
what makes this one special. It's all just, hey, did you play that last night? And now everything is the same. And it's boring.
Yeah, yeah. I remember as much as I hated it, I also loved the fact that I couldn't play Halo. And I also loved the fact that I could play God of War or Little Big Planet and someone with an
Mhm.
Xbox couldn't. It
Yeah,
felt very elitist at the time, but that's also what drove these brands to create the identity that they currently have. Hence the reason why they also tried when it came to marketing themselves. They actually marketed themselves versus now they assume people want them anyway.
yeah,
You see their marketing on TV and the accessibility itself because it was exclusive made us want it even more.
yeah,
Where now if a console releases, most consumers depend on just an online pre-order. They depend on influencer Twitch unboxing,
yeah,
YouTube gameplays,
yep,
or an interesting price
yep.
versus no, I'm gonna get this because I'm a PlayStation fanatic. Now it's like,
Mhm.
oh well, Mr. Beast likes it, or IShowSpeed likes it, or
Exactly.
insert any other influencer. They
Yes,
like this game, therefore I'm going to get this game. Now it's sort of like a third party marketing system where the console and console brand itself relies on people with a lot of clout to sell their product rather than themselves. It sort of seems very lazy at
it
times, but
is.
I mean, it's efficient in the way that they're saving themselves millions upon millions of dollars.
For sure. And the one thing I will clarify too is I don't have a problem with a single game or a series being released across multiple consoles. That
Yeah,
is
no,
that
yeah.
now that was amazing. I still cite to this day the game that brought people together in that era. It wasn't Halo, it wasn't any of the things on any of those consoles. I'm gonna say it, and you're gonna think I'm crazy. It was Guitar Hero and Rock
Guitar
Band
Hero.
and
Yeah,
Rock Band because
for
those
sure.
games were some of the first that were available across all platforms.
You're
And no
right.
matter what console you had, most people my age were bonding over that game and developing a love for classic rock. Now, of course,
Yeah.
developing a love for classic rock, that's an individual thing. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I'm just saying it's kind of what it did. But my the bigger point is that it was offered across all the consoles and it worked so well
It
because of
did.
the fact that you didn't have to own the PlayStation, the Xbox, or the Wii in order to play it. It was available on all of them, and you could play cross stream while also still staying loyal to what you thought was best for you as a gamer.
You still saw a sense of exclusivity though, because you could really only play those games if you had the gear.
Oh, true. Okay, now
So
that's a
there
good
was
touche.
still a
Yeah,
sense of, yeah, there was still a sense of exclusivity, but like you were saying, it evened the playing field to where anyone who had these consoles had the ability to purchase said gear so that they can play.
exactly. Now I'm going to contrast this with another game that was released across all consoles and the PC. Do you remember when Fortnite dropped?
Oh, absolutely. What, like
And
2015, 26, no, 2016, 2017?
yeah, it was around there. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that when you talk about, the identity of like an influencer or something, do you remember how heavily Fortnite was used in movies,
To this
in the
day.
media, in social media, in
Yeah.
yeah, to this day, in music, and so much of the playing field. And most people jumped on the Fortnite bandwagon because they saw other influencers or other gamers playing Fortnite and they realize, oh, I got to get in on the action instead of, oh, I like this game. I'm going to go with this. And so the
Yeah.
reason I'm contrasting it is because I feel like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, these are just examples, of course. They offered gameplay across a wide variety of consoles without you having to give up something you love. Whereas
Yeah.
Fortnite, it was mostly based around oh, it's popular. I need to jump on the bandwagon. And I think
Yeah.
that's where the big shame kind of comes in because one was something
Yeah.
that was actually fun to play. Yes, you had to get the gear. Yes, you had to get everything. But when you
Yeah.
had it, that dominated game night.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Fortnite doesn't really dominate game night because it's a one person player.
Arguably, it absolutely does dominate game night because of its online features and
It
because of the
does.
ability to, like, say if you buy a game
Hmm.
and you buy Guitar Hero. Let's
Yeah.
say you buy Guitar Hero for one, and just to compare those two specifically, since that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
you only have the set of songs that are available there. Whereas Fortnite had an ever changing map, had ever changing skins, had ever
True.
changing
True.
quests and whatnot. So it really relied on the adaptability of the programmers and the cloud. Whereas one time purchased games really rely on the confined storyline, plot, and graphics in that one game, and you have to wait
Hmm.
until the second release to come out, where Fortnite was innovating every maybe 4 months, different specs, different guns, different this, different that, so they were keeping up with the sporadic interest of its newer audience, which at the time was catered to younger children. So it made sense that they had to sort of shift it. Whereas now, I don't believe you can do well with a standalone game that doesn't change. It would be more
True.
so considered uh, like an indie game or something like that, because now all online games, they have mods and they have programmers that change up the game every few months,
Yeah.
and it makes it feel like, and also they're free too, whereas Guitar Hero you had to pay the price of the game itself, and you had to pay the price of the gear too.
Mhm.
So like say for myself, we paid about $400 to $500 in 2007 2008 for the game and the gear. That's
Yeah.
not including the Wii itself, so it was like purchasing another console.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean by that. But the other thing I will say too is Fortnite was a one-person player. You couldn't get a bunch of people around your screen to play it. You know what I'm saying? So,
It did
um,
change. I don't know exactly when that happened because you could do dual
you could
screen
do dual
playing.
screen on
Yeah, you still
Fortnite?
can. You still can.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Maybe
Um
I'm just a traditionalist, and maybe I'm just so used to seeing it that way that maybe that's what's kind of influencing
yeah, for
where
sure.
I'm going with it. But at the
For
same
sure.
time, I think the thing is that with the marketing for sure, it was still very different, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that there definitely was something lost with that version, but I do think that I can see where the innovation of modern gaming does have its pros for sure.
Yeah, and
And
like you were saying though, like earlier, how Nintendo pulled families and pulled groups to
yep,
come and play. Uh, Newer gaming doesn't really call for that. It's very
no,
individualistic, and you have to have friends online to play, or you're
yeah,
playing with random people or even CPUs. Whereas
exactly.
back in the day, it sort of forced you to want to have friends. It forced you to want to have a group
Hmm.
or a collective gaming society or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And but no, I definitely see the pros, and I see where you're going with this for sure. I
Yeah.
definitely see Fortnite. They definitely are always innovating. They're always putting something out. They're
But
always
every modern game though has to do that now.
yeah, but every modern game has to do that. And the thing is, everyone's kind of following Fortnite's example because now you have things like Call of Duty Warzone, you know?
Yeah.
You have things like Rainbow Six Siege, you know,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
all these other games. Great games, but again, now they're marketed almost like TV shows. They have a new season
Exactly.
of it.
Exactly.
And then when the season comes out, then you have to download that, and then you have to
Yeah.
pay for it, and then you
Yeah.
have to pay for the maps, and then you had to get another download, and now you can finally play Warzone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely been my biggest a point of contention with the Call of Duty brand, especially with in-game purchases, because
Yeah.
thankfully there are a few games that you can play and enjoy without having to purchase everything.
Hmm.
Going back to Fortnite, and I know that it's a very uh, it's a conversation for another time, but for example on Fortnite you technically can, or even like Fall Guys or Rocket League, those are the most modern games that I can think of right now. You can play without paying at all.
Hmm.
You just have to put up with certain things that you wouldn't have to if you were paying. Like say
Yeah.
if you were to play Rocket League for free, you would be able to play it, but you would have the same skin. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
if you
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted
Yeah.
the opportunity to do something else, you would have to change. But technically, in modern gaming, it does allow you to be able to play for free. It's just dependent on the player themselves how far into the game they want to get.
Yeah, 100%. And I think really, to be honest with you, when we look at the console wars, I think the thing is too when you look at it, there was a war because of the fact that there was um different games marketed to different people, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Now those different games are made available anywhere to where anyone can play.
yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a big bonus because obviously people like you now can experience games like Halo, you know?
Okay.
People like me can experience Uncharted, and I think that that's
Yeah,
great. The only place I do see it being lost, though, I think is more so just, and again, I think a lot of it's because I am a traditionalist, but I think a lot of it is because I was huge in those conversations. I was huge
yeah,
in all of that kind of fun that was going on, and I feel like the tangible experience was lost. I think is the what
yeah.
I'm trying to get at.
I can absolutely see that.
But again, I'm not necessarily saying that that's bad either because I do see now also where the modern way of gaming is going, and I do also feel that there is a lot of pros in this as well. And I
Yeah.
think that that's the biggest pro. But I do feel also that the tangible experience is robbed because now everything is digital, it's
Yeah.
online. Now you have
100%.
services like Steam that are like
Yeah.
basically streaming services for games. So, you lose a little something, but other than that,
Yeah.
I definitely see where this was all kind of going to. But
Yeah.
anyhow, let's move on. And one of the things I think that also was huge at this time was handhelds.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that handhelds definitely kept me busy on long road trips or waiting quiet periods in school and whatnot. So I'm super excited to talk about this.
100%. Now, I will admit I never owned a handheld. So please take what I say with a grain of salt. And I'm going to entrust a lot of these facts over to my co host because you had both of the most popular handhelds. And the
Yes.
thing is that I'm going to get clear from the get go is unlike the console wars, which had three major brands, the handheld only had two because Microsoft never made a handheld.
Yeah.
And so we never got the Xbox Pocket or whatever they wanted to
That
call
would have
it.
been so cool.
That would
That
have
would
been
have been
sick.
so cool.
That would have been sick. Halo in your pocket. That would have been amazing, but they just never did it. And
Yeah.
so and a lot of it also is because they were trying to do something new.
Yeah.
Microsoft was an American company, and the thing is that I'm not gonna lie, we really weren't that tech savvy when it came to handhelds, unfortunately. Most of that was in Japan, and that was
Yes.
where that was big. So my friend, you owned both, if I'm not mistaken, the
Yeah.
PSP and the DS. And I think you
Correct.
owned a few different versions of it as well.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I'm going to ask you, what do you think made it feel a bit more different or personal than maybe a home console? Because we know that home consoles were personal to people as well. But I feel like handhelds were even more personal because now that's something that's going in your pocket and it kind of becomes a part of who you are as a person. So, what do you
Yeah.
think of that?
Um, all I remember is loving the fact that it was an extension of myself, and the DS and the PSP allowed for that. For those of you who are not familiar, these are basically um, they were pretty much the prototype for modern day cell phones. And the reason why
Oh,
I
yeah.
say that is because it had almost every capability besides calling.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the DS and the PSP, but more so the PSP, which is the PlayStation Portable.
Oh, yeah.
Um, for example, on both models of the PSP and the Nintendo DS. Actually, all models following the first generation, either the PSP 1000 or the original Nintendo DS, they had the ability to store downloadable music. So you already had an iPod. It had the ability to do wallpaper, so you were able to customize it however you wanted.
Oh,
You
yeah.
were able to add photos, and in some of the or in some of the models, you could even take photos. You could download movies, music videos. You could buy music or music videos and movies that you could just pop in the disc and it would play. And it allowed you to also browse the internet and chat with friends.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that you could do all of that back in what 2000 maybe 4 to 2000 like 10, 11 was pretty insane, especially because a lot of these were marketed towards kids. So
Oh, yeah.
kids had all of these abilities that we have currently right now on our touchscreen phones. And even newer models of the DS and the Vita, you were able to take like live capture video, and you were able to say edit your own photos. And I think that is so cool because
No
that's
way.
literally what we do with our phones. They were
That's wild.
definitely underrated devices if you didn't know what you were buying. Um, you add that on top of the traditional gaming, which is, you pick a game, you play it all the way through, you download as many games as possible. You add that on top of the features that I just listed. It's basically a computer in your pocket, which is literally what people have labeled as a current phone. And to have that, and it's a one-time price versus nowadays if you were to have a phone you have to pay for it every month, you have to pay for the service, you need this and that.
Mhm.
These portable handheld gaming systems didn't require any of that. It took the Game Boy and turned it on its head and then
Mhm.
turned up the level to 1,000 because of the accessibility and because you were able to customize it. And I know I keep going back to that, but gaming systems, tell me the last time you were able to buy a blue Xbox. Probably never, unless you
Yeah.
customized it yourself. But, the PSP and Nintendo DS had the ability for you to not only change the covers, but also pick different colors, which
Oh yeah.
ranged from white to black to pink to gray to blue to red. You had the option to make your console your own, and I think that was a super well, largely successful, but a super selling point for people who were in their teens and kids, something that you didn't really have access to buying a traditional console.
Yeah, and the thing is, with the handhelds, I feel like is you said it perfectly. It's kind of an extension of yourself. You really get to
Yeah,
customize it as something that's your own. Now,
yeah,
for context, I will admit I have played both, but they were my friends, and I never owned a handheld personally myself. So I've played some Sims. I've played a little bit of Grand Theft Auto Chinatown. So I definitely I know a little bit, but I'm not well versed in it is the thing. But from what I understand, the other thing too I thought that was cool about it was, did you ever get the feeling that, okay, let's say maybe at the time you didn't have a cell phone yet,
okay.
and the next thing you know, you have a PSP or a Nintendo DS in your pocket. Did it ever feel kind of like cool to kind of almost feel like you're almost a part of that exclusive world, even though you may not, excuse me, you may not have the access to the stuff maybe your parents have, like, cell phones, things that can access the
Yeah.
internet. But did it still feel empowering to kind of like have your own little device in your pocket that you're like, I can call this mine,
It
kind of thing?
absolutely did because it came out at a time where, in my opinion, the most advanced phone that you could buy was a BlackBerry with a
Yeah, the
keyboard
BlackBerry.
and a flip phone Razor or something like that. And at the time, you could really only do photo and video. So that
Yep.
was the main difference between the original PSP and the Nintendo DS. Like my phone or my parents' phones were just as technologically advanced as my current PSP or Nintendo DS that I owned. And I thought that that was very cool because not only did it show that you were sort of on an even playing field to an
Yep.
adult, but also it separated you from other classmates too. Like, say, if they had an older model or if they didn't have one at all, you were the hub for gaming. So, like, say,
Yeah.
if I went to school and I had my PSP, I could show my friends and have them play with me. It was sort of like bringing an Xbox and a
Mhm.
TV to class. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
not only did it make you feel like you were sort of even to an adult, but it made you feel like you were a community bonder for friends and stuff who didn't have one already.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the PSP as well is that you could connect it to things such as your computer or your TV. So I
Right.
actually never really had the chance to do that. But who's to say you wouldn't have been able to play, with friends at home on your TV? I'm not
Mhm.
sure. Um, Something about the Nintendo DS though that was really nice is that did it had like a geo connector where you, along with somebody else who has a Nintendo DS, if you guys are in the same vicinity and have the same DS and you
Mhm.
guys are on Wi-Fi or the same game and you guys are on Wi-Fi, you can play the same game. And I thought that was so
Oh, that's
cool. You
dope.
didn't like back in the day in for a Game Boy or something to be able to do that, you had to use a wire or something like that.
Yeah.
PSP, you weren't able to do that at all. So
Yeah.
both of the handhelds, even though they were pretty much the same, they also
Mhm.
had differing features that also differentiated you from other people. So say if you had a Nintendo DS but your friend had a PSP, you still had a leg up on certain things.
Oh, 100%, and the one thing I think that I envied the most about the PSP was the fact that you can get online, but the
Oh
even
yeah.
bigger thing I envied was the fact that you could watch movies on that thing.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I
That
owned
was
like maybe 4 movies.
if you don't mind me asking, do you know the movies you owned?
Yeah, I owned Beowulf, Talladega Nights,
Okay.
Alien versus No, that was a game. Shoot.
Okay.
Shoot. National
Those
Treasure
are
and
still
then
great.
one more. I can't remember
Oh,
the fourth
National
one.
Treasure.
but I owned
Okay.
four.
Okay, sounds good. I had a buddy who had Spider-Man 2 on his PSP.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
Yeah,
Oh
and
man.
I remember when he put that thing in, and then we were watching it. We were on a car trip, and he just has his PSP, and we're watching Spider-Man 2 on his PSP.
Oh, that's
So
too
it
perfect.
was the coolest thing. But
I
you know,
actually still own my Talladega Nights, and I think it's still in working condition. I think I used it
oh,
about
that's
maybe four
dope.
years ago.
Okay.
I'll post it on the Instagram.
For sure, for sure. I always remember the one thing though with PSP was they used UMD discs, and the thing is that the thing,
Trash.
yeah, the funniest thing is
Trash.
what confused so many people about it was because the little disc is in the thing. A lot of people didn't realize that they had to put the whole thing in.
Yep.
And do you know how
Many
many
people
people
broke them.
broke them because they thought they were supposed to take the disc out?
Oh man. Oh man.
And then I think PlayStation even had to go public with it, like, no, this is how you use a UMD disc and whatnot. Whereas good old Nintendo, little cartridges.
Well, the size sort of was a replica of the GameCube game. It
Yeah,
was pretty much this, it was a similar size. It was about that big.
in
It
like a
had a
little
little,
triangle.
eh,
No, it wasn't a triangle, but you know what I mean.
yeah, it was like it was a weird
It was a
shape.
weird shape.
It was a weird shape, yeah. I've actually posted a video on the Rewind Room, but I'll post another video showing my current games on there.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, no, for sure. That is just so cool. And the one thing that I also kind of noticed, and maybe you can help me here, is I noticed that the PSP really was kind of pioneering in a lot of the high-end graphics and really bringing
100%,
in
yeah.
kind of a lot more of that high resolution
Mm-hmm.
gameplay experience, whereas Nintendo was very much more about the gameplay itself
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
was more a lot about the fun. Because I remember when I was playing Sims, it was more about the experience of playing the game. And obviously, Nintendo is their own thing, so they're going to use the Mii's and all that kind of stuff too. But I
Yeah.
feel like it was definitely more about the game, whereas the PSP, great games and all that, but definitely was more about the visual experience as
Well,
well.
it was like having a PC in your pocket. The
Yeah,
graphics were identical.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And I still am so sad that Microsoft didn't get in on this. Can you imagine Microsoft's having a handheld version
That would have been
of
too
their
cool.
console? It would have been
Would have
too
been
cool.
so
I mean,
cool.
I mean, I don't know what kind of games you would get on that though. I mean, they may have even put some of their own library. Halo Combat Evolved, if that had moved over to a handheld, that would
Oh
have been
man.
huge.
Oh man. Oh man.
That would have been absolutely huge. But the other thing too that I thought was really cool was handhelds had a whole different community as well. Because when I say that, I mean it was the
Yeah.
same community because a lot of people who had consoles did have handhelds as well. But what I
Yeah.
mean by different community is unlike consoles where you were talking about what's the best, what do you have here? With
Yeah.
these, you're pulling them out and comparing them right there with each other. And the thing
Yeah.
is now you can play games and you can do stuff with your friends in the same vicinity. And you didn't need to
Yeah.
be at your
Face to
house. You
face.
could be at the
Yeah.
playground.
Oh, true.
You could be at the local restaurant. You could be at a Jiffy Burger, or you could be at a lot of these different places and organizations. And oh, I don't know why I
Mm,
put organizations, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you could be at different. You didn't have to always be at your home. You could play it wherever you were, and you could play with a big group of friends. And I
Yeah.
thought that was a cool experience too. Now, did either of these two offer online options, or were they all purely within the system?
All within the system, unfortunately.
Okay.
The only one that offered online capabilities was the Nintendo DS, but that was if you were in close proximity to somebody else who also had a
Okay.
similar game.
Okay.
So we didn't really see that in Nintendo until about the Nintendo Switch. And then
Okay.
for PlayStation, you didn't really see that until they started. It was something compatible to a cell phone where you can put the controllers, it's the PS, I don't even know what it was called, but the PlayStation controllers on your cell phone so that you could have
Mhm.
access to the PlayStation network. Before that was the PS Vita, and I actually
Oh
didn't
yeah.
own a PS Vita, so I'm not
Okay.
sure if that one had online capabilities.
Okay, interesting. The only reason I ask is because I didn't know if there was like options where you could be like in close proximity and you could share like different games and play with them kind of while you're in the same area. But you kind of answered that already with Nintendo. But PlayStation, PSP was just a sole,
Yeah.
just one player. Okay, so that
Yeah,
means
you could
basically,
I
okay,
I think you could connect them, but I'm not sure exactly how that worked, to be
okay,
completely honest. I feel like both people probably had to have the same game and you had to had some sort of
yeah,
cord connecting.
similar to like a LAN party, probably.
Probably, yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, yeah, no, so yeah, that's really interesting. So I didn't realize that. So the big thing too, when we look at the handheld wars, it also was pretty tense as well because the thing is now
Mm-hmm.
there's only
Yeah.
two of these
Yeah.
things. And the one thing I kind of noticed as well is when you kind of look at how these handhelds were marketed, you look at consoles, they were marketed to different
Mm-hmm.
demographics. I feel
Yeah.
like handhelds were marketed to different kinds of people with the
Mm-hmm.
with the DS almost kind of being marketed toward maybe younger individuals, kids, maybe tweens, and into teens. I mean, I knew plenty of teens and adults who have the DS,
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying I feel like that was more their marketing push, whereas I feel like the PSP was marketed to some of those older people
Yeah.
who had the traditional gaming experience.
Yeah. I definitely agree upon the on your point on the PSP for sure. But I did, upon my research for Nintendo DS, realize and was reminded that actually Nintendo changed the game with the DS because not only were they marketing to young children, but prior to that, Nintendo pretty much only marketed to a majority of their male audience.
Oh,
And the DS allowed for that demographic to open up to not only young girls but also to adults. And you wouldn't think that that was the case, but
okay.
Nintendo purposely tried to cater towards adults by creating brain teaser games and marketing the DS itself as
Oh,
an
okay.
educational tool. And I'll talk more about this later, but even schools started implementing the access to Nintendo DS because of said brain teasers
Oh,
and
I think I remember hearing about this.
educational games available. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember
So,
hearing about this because news stories were running things where they were actually running tests
yeah,
on
exactly,
people's scores
exactly.
using the Nintendo DS with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
these strategy games. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Well, wow, you're filling me in on a lot of stuff I don't really know about, so I genuinely appreciate that. But one thing I will say that at least I kind of knew about the handheld market was, it was kind of almost similar to, it was almost kind of like a gateway or a precursor to the smartphone generation, really.
Oh man,
Because
okay.
the reason I bring this up is because if you think about it, you have the PSP, which can connect to the internet and can do all these fun little things, and I mean, obviously it's not a phone, but it can function as kind of a computer in your pocket.
Yeah,
Versus the Nintendo Switch offers gameplay in your pocket. And what does a smartphone offer? It offers both,
it offers both. Yeah,
if you think
yeah.
about it. So really, I kind of see that these two really kind of paved the way for what we know now as smartphones. And the reason I don't
Right,
think we
yeah.
see a lot of handhelds now is because most of these games can be found on an app
Right.
or
And
within
you
the App
do see
Store.
some companies like PlayStation going back
Yeah.
to the handheld option because of how well the Nintendo Switch is doing. Now you
Yes.
have a PlayStation Portable that is literally the PSP but in Switch form.
Hmm.
And they see that there is a demand for it, but will it ever beat the demand of PC gaming or true console gaming? Probably not anymore.
Unfortunately.
Not anymore,
Hmm.
probably.
And I think now with consoles like the Switch, those are going to dominate because while it is technically a handheld, it's also a console you can play on your TV.
Exactly.
And that's where I think the Switch is going to win the war now because it's not
Yeah.
just a handheld. It is also a home console. And actually
But
that's
not
how
only
it's,
not
yeah.
only that though, you bring in the selling factor of the Wii, which was the motion, and that's
Yes.
literally what the Nintendo
And
Switch is,
that's what,
used
yep.
for as well.
Exactly. You have games you can play just like this, like Mario Kart or
Hmm.
Breath of the Wild, and then you have games like One Two Switch, which is a weird game, but is what it is. And a lot of these other games that still implement, you can take off the little Joy-Con and you can still do this, the motion
Exactly.
thing. So it kind of combines the experience of all of the years Nintendo has been working toward. The Switch almost feels like the
True.
console they've been working toward.
That's a
this
great
whole
point.
time. That's what
Yeah.
it feels like. And so I feel like, all of these consoles that are being made, the handhelds included, all kind of feel like they work toward the Switch because the Switch now offers two in one. And
And now
so,
you can't help but beg the question of what now?
yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing is that it's kind of like, where's it going to go now? What's going to happen when the Switch 3 finally drops? What's that going to be like?
Well, let's hope that these companies have an answer to that because I am so tired of the same console just being
Likewise.
released, but $200 more than the last one.
Well, I mean, look at okay. As much of an Xbox fan as I am, I'm going to criticize them for a bit. One of the things too I've noticed is that every Xbox since about the 360, or actually the Xbox One, has almost been kind of the same. Just a little bit of a design change is all it
Yeah.
really is.
Same thing with
Um,
PlayStation. After
and
the
it's the same.
PS4, everything
Yep.
changed, or
Yeah.
nothing changed really.
Nothing changed really after the PS4. The only thing with the PS5, it got bigger and fatter.
And
The
the ability to what mute yourself on your on your controller.
Yeah, that's the only real things it did. Yeah, does it have the newest games? Of course. That's
Yeah.
how it goes. The Xbox Series X, which I do have and I do like it as a console, is kind of the same thing. And now Xbox is even starting to go 100% digital now. With the
Oh.
Xbox Series S, which I'm going to talk about later, is a digital only console. It has no
Wow.
disc slot or anything. And that is something I will bring up a little bit later when we kind of talk about the future. But
Yeah.
little precursor into what we're gonna be talking about. But just to end off this section, handhelds, I feel like they were definitely a game changer, and they're still popular to this day. I mean, I know plenty of people who still own DSs and the PSPs, and I think they were definitely kind of a testament to what gaming really offered, and also to kind of say like, hey, we're gonna offer something to everyone. We just want you to buy our product. Is basically
Yeah.
kind of the thing. And to just one last thing, out of all the handhelds you own, which is your personal favorite and why?
Oh man. I'd still have to go with the PSP.
The PSP. Okay.
Um the Nintendo DS was great. I currently do not own a DS. I wish I did. I don't know
Okay.
what happened to my DS. Must have been given away by my mom or something like
Mm.
that. But my PSP, I still own it. I still own most of the games that I originally did when I
Mhm.
was a kid. It will always hold a place in my heart because it allowed me to also feel like a teen when I was playing it, even though I was a
Mhm.
preteen when I got it. Because there are a lot of really great games on there that um, made you feel like you had a console just in your hand. Whereas the
Yeah.
Nintendo DS was very uh, adult oriented as well, but it was more kid friendly than anything. Finding a shooter game, which was my preference, was
Yep.
nearly
Same.
impossible. It was nearly
Mhm.
impossible, unless you were talking about Grand Theft Auto Chinatown, which was garbage. But
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest game, but I mean, it
on
was
the DS, it
GTA. It was
was
GT. Oh, well, that made it to the DS?
that's what I had it on. I
Oh,
had
I didn't
Chinatown on
realize
the
that
DS. It
Chinatown made it
was
to the DS.
awful. It was
Okay,
awful.
well, it's kind of like Call of Duty. When Call of Duty came to the Wii, it was awful as well because now, unlike the majority of consoles where it just holds up and you just have to move the person around, you actually have
Mm.
to control a person. So sometimes you start the game, you're like,
Yeah, no, same thing with Resident Evil on the Wii as
yeah,
well.
it sucks.
But the PSP for sure, just because you could also play movies on there and
Yep.
you could take pictures depending on the model. It was like, if I wanted to get rid of my cell phone, it because I had no one to call or text, which is not the case. But if that were the case, I would just buy a PSP.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. No, I think that's great. I know
Now,
lots of
actually,
people. Go ahead.
let
Go
me
ahead.
ask you,
Yes.
if you had the opportunity to buy one right now, what would you buy? A Nintendo DS or a PSP?
PSP.
Really? No.
PSP 100%. Yeah, it was a cool thing. And yeah, I knew a lot of people had a DS, and I knew a lot of people who owned them. I played on the DS many times. I had lots of fun playing on the DS. But the PSP just, I feel like, was just what would have been more settled to me. The fact that you can watch
Yeah.
movies on it, the fact that you can access the internet, the
Yeah.
fact that you can play games on it, it just seems like the more iconic and better choice, especially for me, because I'm one of those
Yeah.
people who is an all-in-one kind of thing, and I think the PSP would have offered that. It definitely would have taken me time to get used to, but still,
Yeah.
I would not regret. I would definitely go for the PSP.
I like that answer.
Yep, absolutely. Well, my friend, are you ready for our favorite part of every single episode? Should we
Absolutely.
do it? Yeah, okay.
Let's do it.
Here we go. We got this. So drum roll, please. Fun facts and trivia. Ow!
What a difference.
Thank you, my friend. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into some fun facts and trivia here. So I will
Oh,
go ahead
yes,
and
yes.
start off with the first one. So number one, the original PlayStation only exists because of a failed partnership. Sony was originally hired by Nintendo to create a CD-ROM add-on for the SNES codenamed the PlayStation, of all things. At the 1991 Consumer Electronics Show, Nintendo publicly stabbed Sony in the back by announcing they were ditching them for Philips.
Oh,
Um,
man.
and Sony decided to take their prototype and turn it into a standalone console out of spite, eventually starting the war as we know it. Because really, I think it
Whoa.
began with the PS1, because that's the console that changed everything. Really, if you think
Man,
about it.
imagine if that selfishness wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have the PS1 to the what?
Five.
PS5 and then
None.
PSP to PS Vita and
Nope.
everything so on. Wow, that's crazy. And arguably, would we even have the Wii? Would we have
Yeah.
the DS? Would we have any of those things?
I'm almost just kind of thinking to myself, thank you, God.
Yeah, no, seriously, it was a collaboration not meant to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of like thank you guys for not collabing because now
Yeah,
we have such a wide variety of stuff
yeah,
and you created one of the greatest consoles. So like
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
seriously.
So and then my second one is before the PS1, gaming was largely marketed as a toy for children. Think of the Nintendo 64 or the Sega Genesis.
Okay.
However, Sony changed the entire culture by marketing the PlayStation to college students and adults by placing consoles in nightclubs and partnering with late night TV shows. The shift
Mm.
forced Nintendo and the newcomer Microsoft with the Xbox to change how they spoke to audiences, turning gaming from a hobby into a mainstream lifestyle.
Oh man, that's a great one.
Yeah, and it's wild to think that, that there's people who are gamers and they were already, teens adults and yet we see them to this day still buying gaming consoles.
Yeah, true.
And it's just wildly cool. And then my third one, when Microsoft entered the war in 2001, they were so desperate to gain a foothold that they sold every original Xbox console at a significant loss. It is estimated that Microsoft lost roughly $4 billion dollars during that first generation to compete with Sony and Nintendo. They viewed it as a loss leader to ensure they weren't left behind as the living room became the new hub for home entertainment.
Oh man, that is sad.
And number four, we have something about the GameCube, which is interesting. So, after the GameCube struggled to keep up with the raw power of the PS2 and Xbox, Nintendo made a radical decision to stop competing on specs. They adopted the blue ocean strategy with the Wii, ignoring the red ocean, which is often known as the bloody battle for hardcore gamers.
Mm,
Instead, focusing on casual players, seniors, and families who had never touched a controller before.
wow.
And actually, really, if you think about it, the Wii was probably the easiest console to use, despite the fact that you had to use a motion thing to control it.
True, true.
So,
And also it's timeless because I know people to this day are very nostalgic towards the Wii as well.
yeah, and I still own my Wii, actually, the
Yeah.
original Wii that I got, and I still play games on it to this day.
Oh heck yes. I got mine right
So,
here.
absolutely, mine is back in my room, but still amazing stuff. And
Heck
then
yes.
for the last one, number five, Microsoft's success in the console wars is often credited to a single game, Halo Combat Evolved, one of my all-time favorite games, maybe my all-time favorite game. Um, Halo was originally being developed as a third-party strategy game for Macintosh. Steve Jobs actually announced it at Macworld Keyworld in 1999. However, Sony bought the developer known as Bungie shortly after and turned it into a first-person shooter and made it a killer app that allowed Xbox to survive in the early 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah, which is funny because with my fun facts, I'm about to talk about that as well.
Absolutely. Take it away, my friend.
So for my first one, arguably, Halo is literally what saved Xbox because without Halo Combat Evolved, Microsoft executives admitted that the original Xbox likely would have failed. So where would we be? Where would Xbox and the Xbox community be without Halo Combat Evolved?
No, 100%. I agree. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's actually wildly incredible because, really a lot of people like to look at Xbox and be like, "Oh yeah, it was just kind of the proto child whatnot," but Xbox really took off just because of Halo.
Seriously.
Yep.
Yeah. To shift gears to the Wii sold out to people who never played games. And this is going back to the point I made earlier. For example, they sold it to retirement homes, physical therapists, and hospitals. All of them bought Wii consoles for rehab, something no other console had ever achieved at that scale.
Wow.
Very community based.
That's very community based. Yeah, I can see why the
Yeah.
Wii did so successful.
All right, for my third, the Xbox controller was so big it became a joke. The
Oh
original
yeah.
Xbox Duke controller was
Oh
considered
man.
unusable by many players, especially in Japan. So Microsoft had to redesign it mid generation to survive overseas. And I, being someone with very tiny hands, would have hated that controller. I know for a fact.
I have big hands and I hated that controller. It was the most annoying thing. And to make it worse, it was a wired controller.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The shape was just odd. It
And the
was just
shape was odd. I
odd.
mean, it's a cool design, but like when you try and hold it's not practical at all.
No, it's not.
And
It's
really, I hate
not.
to say it, Microsoft really didn't get it until they did the Xbox One, to be honest with you. And
True.
here's the reason why I say that. I say that because, and I'll be brief with this, I promise, is because then the Xbox 360 controller was tiny compared to the others. I mean, it was
Mm,
nice to have a small controller, but in my hands, it was
that's a
huge,
good
and I
point.
was always fat thumbing things and a lot of stuff.
Mm,
So I mean, it was a fun console, but I definitely messed up a lot with it. But no, definitely the one is probably the one that kind of fits the best, I think, for the majority of people. But anyways,
yes. Let's thank the heavens that they have not gone back to the original Duke design. And then for my actually my last fun fact, I only have four this week
yep.
or this month, excuse me. The Wii outsold both the PS3 and the Xbox 360 individually, despite being less powerful. It sold over 101 million units, proving power specs mattered less than accessibility and novelty.
Wow.
Yeah, those
That's
are big
wild.
numbers. It's a
Those are
big
big
jump.
numbers, especially
Yeah.
when competing with giants like Sony and Microsoft.
Yeah,
That's pretty amazing. I
exactly.
always wonder when's Apple going to get in on the console gaming world. I don't know if they ever will. I'm just saying it'd be interesting. It would be
Oh
interesting.
man. Oh man. I have no idea what's to come for the future. But
Absolutely.
that actually completes my fun fact section.
Okay, sounds good. Are we ready for trivia? And my friend, I will let you take it away with trivia.
Alrighty, alrighty. Okay, so for your first question, we have which console was originally developed from a failed partnership between Sony and Nintendo?
I think I said this already, actually. Let's see if I can remember what I said. Ah, PlayStation.
Correctamundo. Ding, 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 ding. Sony was first working with Nintendo on a CD based add on for the SNES, as you said, but the deal collapsed. And now, because of that deal, as we said before, we have everything that we currently have nowadays. So, got
Nice.
one point right there.
You're testing my memory because I almost forgot, actually. I legitimately almost forgot. I wasn't playing. I actually did almost forget.
How funny, how funny. And what's the funniest is that that was the latest segment that we just talked about.
Yeah, it was. It
And usually
was.
I'm the one with the bad memory.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Number two, which PlayStation console was so complex that some developers compared it to programming for a supercomputer?
That's that's got to be the PS3, am I correct?
Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding. Its cell processor was powerful but notoriously difficult to code for, causing early games to underperform compared to the Xbox 360 versions.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the reason I guess that is because you remember how big the PlayStation 3 was, especially that first gen. That thing was
Oh, I
huge.
know, I know. I think in like 2008 or something, it was almost $850 or something
Yeah,
like that.
that's wild to think that that
Yeah.
console was almost $1,000. That is
At the time, too,
at the
adjusted to
time.
inflation. I don't even
At the
want to know.
time, yeah, that is just absolutely crazy. But even the Slim wasn't much smaller. Slim was still a
Oh
big
yes.
console.
Yeah, exactly,
It
exactly. But
wasn't
you're
until
two
they,
for two.
yeah, okay, yep,
Which handheld blurred the public's perception of gaming and education?
the DS.
Yes, ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
Many game titles were marketed as brain training tools and were endorsed in schools by educators in multiple countries.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, PlayStation could care less about education. Let's be real.
Education, not on
Yeah.
my watch.
Yeah. It's
And
fun
for
and educational. Okay,
it's
sorry. You know what I'm
That's
referencing, I
funny.
think.
No, that's funny. That's
Yep.
funny.
Okay.
Um, and for my last trivia, I only have four this month as
Okay.
well. Which console proved that hardcore gamers weren't the biggest market anymore?
Which console you said?
Yeah, it proved that hardcore gamers weren't the biggest market.
Oh, that's got to be the Switch.
Think a little bit before that.
It's not? Okay, hold on. The only reason I'm thinking the Switch is because that's the only one I can think of because the PS5 still markets to those to hardcore gamers, as
Think
does the
about
Xbox.
maybe 7, 8 years back.
Oh, seven,
Maybe
eight
even
years. Okay, okay,
nine.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, was it the Wii?
Yep. Ding, ding, ding,
Okay,
ding,
okay,
ding. By
okay.
targeting families and non gamers, Nintendo outsold both competitors and redefined who games were for.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's wild. Okay. Okay. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. That
Yeah,
was
you
really
got
good.
4 for 4. Heck
I
yeah.
got 4 for 4. You got to get five
Yeah.
for five now. And this
Yeah.
last one's
Oh
a
man, I know
freebie.
I
And
won't.
I will be so disappointed and upset if you don't get this last one because it's a freebie, basically.
You say that and I disappoint every single month, so be
We'll see.
prepared
We'll
for that
see.
as well.
Okay. So my first question for you in trivia. What was the
Okay.
original internal name for the project that became the Microsoft Xbox?
Internal project. And I don't recall you
For the pro
mentioning it.
Okay, let me rephrase that again. What is the original name for the project that became the Microsoft Xbox? We'll take internal out of there altogether.
Okay. Either way, I'm not sure. I don't really know much about Xbox to be
Okay.
completely honest.
The original name, it's a mouthful,
Okay.
was the DirectX box.
The Direct Xbox.
The DirectX as in direct and then X with that and then box is a separate word.
Oh, okay, okay. That's gross. I'm
It,
glad that they
it
did
is
not go with
gross.
that. I don't care for that.
That
It
is
reminds me of DirecTV.
Yeah, right. So it was named after Microsoft's DirectX graphics technology. The team wanted
Okay.
to prove that the machine, based on a PC architecture, could be completed with dedicated consoles like the PS2.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the first one. So that's why they kind of were going with that. So
Gotcha.
number two, before the Xbox was released, Microsoft famously approached which Japanese giant in an attempt to acquire them, only to be laughed out of the room.
Xbox being denied. So I know that
Microsoft more so.
or well, Microsoft, yeah. I know that Nintendo did not let PlayStation collaborate with them, and both Sony and Nintendo are Japanese. Uh, I mean, it would be hypocritical for PlayStation to not want to collaborate with Xbox. So I'm going to say Nintendo.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay.
That is
Okay.
correct. It is
Okay.
Nintendo. So in the year 2000, Microsoft executives met with Nintendo to propose an acquisition where Nintendo would make games and Microsoft would make the hardware. The Nintendo executives reportedly laughed for 20 minutes after the pitch.
Oh man, Nintendo's savage, man. The
Nintendo is
Japanese are
savage.
savage.
They are
They're
savage,
savage.
man. That
Even
is,
amongst themselves. Look what they do with
yeah,
PlayStation. Oh man.
exactly. They are savage. Amazing people, but yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
for
savage.
sure, for sure.
Okay, and number three, what was the unique internal hardware reason? Now we're going to backtrack just for a second, so I am cheating a little with this one.
Okay.
What was the unique internal hardware reason that the Nintendo 64 used cartridges while its competitors Sony and Sega moved to compact discs?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't. I don't even have a guess for that.
Load times and anti-piracy.
Okay. Low times is in what?
So Nintendo argued that cartridges allowed for instant loading compared to the slow read speeds
Oh,
of the early
load.
1
I
and
see. I see.
CD-ROM drives. It also made the games harder to illegally copy, though it made the game
Mm,
significantly more expensive for consumers.
that makes sense. Sorry, I thought you said low as in
Oh,
LOW.
no, no,
Okay,
no, no, no.
load
Sorry,
times. I
I
see.
should load,
No,
load
that makes
times.
sense. Okay.
So
Okay.
all good. All good. And number four, which console? Okay, we talked about this console earlier.
Okay.
Which console's failure is widely credited with being the final nail in the coffin for Sega's time as a hardware manufacturer? This is also kind of a freebie.
So this was like late 90s and I
Early
think
2000s.
early to well, I think the Dreamcast was the last console that they had. But I don't was it before the Genesis?
That was a little after.
Oh, so then I'll say the Dreamcast.
Yes, ding, ding, ding. That is the
Gotcha.
correct
Okay.
answer. It is the Dreamcast, the Sega Dreamcast. Despite
Okay.
being ahead of its time with a built-in modem for online gameplay,
What? Oh, you know what? I remember that from our last or from our episode on console gaming. Oh my gosh.
So,
Yes.
the Dreamcast couldn't overcome the massive hype and DVD capability of the upcoming PlayStation 2 and Xbox,
Mm-hmm.
leading Sega to exit the console market in 2001. So, Sega, had you had
Mm,
made
yeah.
it DVDs, you probably could have stayed in the game.
I know. And how cool would it be to see the modern day Dreamcast today? Because that is a
That would have
cool
been insane.
name too.
The
That's a cool
Dreamcast is a
name.
cool name, and the Dreamcast is a whole lot of fun to play. I've played a Dreamcast before,
I've
and
actually
and
never
they're
played.
oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. But it's so sad to see exactly how they kind of went under, and it's a bit understandable,
Yeah.
but it's also it sucks, you know.
Yeah. I mean, innovation, you have to keep up or you get lost.
Yep. Okay, number five.
Number five. Okay.
Please tell me you get this, or you're gonna have hundreds of disappointed and upset fans at you.
Oh, I know. I know the pressure. I love it.
Yes. And I'm talking people who are even in your camp. So, here we go. Which console from the early 2000s holds the record for being the best selling video game console of all time?
Could it be the PlayStation 2?
Yeah, I think it could be the PlayStation 2. Yeah, it sounds about right. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, it
Me
is the
thinks it's the
PlayStation 2.
PS2.
Yes, the PlayStation 2, absolutely. The PlayStation 2 selling over 155 million units. Its dominance was fueled by not just games, but the fact that it was one of the most affordable DVD players on the market ahead of it at the time of its release.
And if you guys have no idea about DVD players and stuff, definitely go back to one of our episodes on physical media, DVDs being the case uh, of one of those episodes topics. And just for context, one of the earliest released uh, DVD players cost about $1,000.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
PlayStation 2 costed between 3 and 400
Yeah. But
on
can
its
you guys
release.
imagine buying a DVD player that isn't even a Blu-ray player that does nothing else but play, pause, rewind, and fast forward a DVD for $1,000?
It's wild to think about. And to
Yeah.
think that after that, Sony innovated again with the PlayStation 3 being able to play Blu-rays.
Yep. Yep.
So it's absolutely
Oh
wired. So
man.
I got to see real quick how much the PlayStation 2 cost at launch.
Can you adjust it for inflation as well?
Yeah, I will. Okay, let's see. The PlayStation 2 launched in the US on October 26, 2000 for this is impressive. This really was the cheapest DVD console on the planet. For $299, which in equivalent to the
What?
proximity when adjusted for inflation is between $546 to $550 in 2024 dollars.
So the equivalent to a Nintendo Switch 2 then.
The equivalent to a Nintendo Switch 2 when adjusted for inflation. But
Whoa.
still, for a DVD player,
But
that
still.
is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Oh man.
Yeah, so
I don't think my parents could even entertain the idea of paying so much for a DVD player. I should have sold it, the PS2 to them for that, but since I had recently purchased the PS1 right before that,
mhm.
they were like, "That's enough console for you."
Yep. And keep in mind, this was the era when McDonald's not only still had their dollar menu, but a Big Mac meal cost under $5.
Yep. Yep, and they also had free video games at McDonald's as well so that you could
Yes.
play.
I almost left that out too, but yes, that is part of it as well.
Yeah.
So, great fun facts and trivia section.
Yes.
We had a little bit of stuff that we had to work out, but awesome content as well. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm sure you learned as well. So incredible
Always.
stuff, and I hope the people out there learned something.
Yes, yes. Let us tickle your brains once a month on the content that we're working on. And hopefully the trivia section is just as fun as well. Even if you don't know the answer, it's still a learning experience.
Absolutely, 100%. But to shift gears, I kind of want to look at some of just our memories as well of these consoles because,
Okay.
obviously is obviously about, the history and stuff, but also part of it is, I always like to have areas where we can talk about things. So I'm going to ask you, my friend,
Okay.
what was the earliest or most vivid memory of choosing a console over another, and how did the choice do you feel defined your gaming habits or what you liked to play?
To be completely honest, we and when I say me or we, I mean myself and my two younger brothers. We were never really given the option of an Xbox because we like
Sure.
were just gifted a PlayStation 1, and from there, our interest really only stayed in the sphere of the PlayStation. So I never really had to choose between one console or another. I did contemplate getting an Xbox at one point, but I was never swayed in a way. So I never really had to,
Mhm.
sit on the edge of my seat, assuming that I'm gonna get one over the other. Um,
Okay.
but my brother now, the middle child, he does own an Xbox now, but he claims that he only purchased it. I think he got an Xbox One. He
Okay.
claims that he only purchased it because the PS5 was too expensive.
Okay.
So I feel like had I not been gifted a PS5 and had I not had access to my PS4,
Yep.
I most definitely would have probably switched over to Xbox for the affordability.
Oh, 100%. I can hear you that for sure. But also the thing that you kind of have bragging rights too with is you were a part of one of the most successful and popular gaming consoles on the planet. And to be
Yeah,
honest with you, I did envy PlayStation players at times as well because they had, I feel like, a better gaming setup. I feel like they had better, more interactive games. And I feel like PlayStation's market really felt like what you think of a I hate to use the word stereotypical, but what you think of a typical gamer, if you know what
right.
I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I agree.
and whatnot. So I definitely envied the PlayStation because of the fact that, excuse me, it had all that and is part of the reason why I owned a PlayStation 2 for a little while.
Okay, yeah.
My biggest regret is getting rid of it. And the reason being
Oh
is because it
man,
was a
yeah.
slim, I was only thinking forward, and when you're young, you don't really think about
No.
the the fun of having, one of the best consoles out there and such.
Yeah.
And so I really regret giving selling my PlayStation 2. I really wish I would have kept it because it's one of the best consoles, and I'm hoping one day. And also I feel bad because it was a holiday present for my family. And so
Oh wow,
I
okay.
really, and ever since then, I've never given away or sold a gift that was given to me by my parents.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's important, in a lot of things, and you don't think about it, unfortunately, at the
Yeah.
time, and so, it is a massive regret that I have, but for in multiple ways. But at the end of the day, I do own a PS4. I do own a PS3, and so I am fortunate on that end. But I'm hoping one day to get a PlayStation 2 again
Yeah, and
because
I one day would love a PS2 actually.
yeah, because I'm surprised that that's the generation you skipped of
Yeah.
all of
Well,
them.
so when it came to gaming consoles, my parents were very on the economic side of things. So, like,
Mm,
if it made sense to buy a new one, they would buy a new one. But
okay.
because the PlayStation 1 had only come out maybe 5 years before that, they didn't really see a need to do that.
Fair enough. And obviously, you probably wouldn't have swayed your parents saying, "Oh, you can watch DVDs on this thing." So,
No, 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 no. My parents were still, well, my dad doesn't watch TV, but my
okay.
mom was very into VHS, and that was like the last thing she wanted to move into.
Oh, so your mom was still a VHS traditionalist and didn't
Yeah,
and took a while before she made the move to DVDs.
exactly,
That
exactly.
that was kind of us too, but mostly it was because of the price. But then
Mm,
eventually we
okay.
were kind of compelled to move to make the switch because at that point, VHS was not being sold anymore. They
Yeah.
were starting to kind of go under a bit. So VHS never, as big as it was in my house, it eventually we made the switch, I think around 2004, 2005.
I would say, yeah, 2004, 2005 was the same with my family as well.
Yep, absolutely. I still used my VCR to record stuff all the time.
Yeah.
That was the best part is like you could watch a TV show and then you have your VHS, your VCR, and you just hit record and
Yeah.
boom, there you go. You got your favorite shows off of television. So, but yeah, no, I wish DVD had that same option as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Um,
would that would be so cool. Also, with how compact the discs are, you'd be able to save and record a lot of things, and also with the storage that you could fit on there versus a VHS tape. Oh
yeah,
man, it's
no,
endless.
it's 100% endless. So that was one thing I had, but the very first console I ever owned was the Wii. Do you ever remember a store called Hastings?
I'm not sure there was one in Tucson, and if there
I
was, I
think there
wasn't
was.
familiar
Okay.
with it.
Hastings was basically just a multimedia center. You could get so much there, and I could spend hours in that store, and I mean hours in Hastings. It was that big of a deal. But anyways, we were there and I was in the back and I was playing Halo 3, right? This is actually one of the places I first got exposed to Halo aside from my cousin who is also a massive Halo fan. So basically what ended up happening was my folks decided, okay, we're going to get him a Wii. But instead of waiting to go without me or maybe when I was at school or something, we all went and they told me go into the book section and pick out a book you like and just read it. What is that 101 for? We're buying you the Wii. Don't come over here because we're trying to keep it a surprise.
So, what ended up happening? Did you open it at home, or did you end up seeing them hold it in the store bag or something?
Well, here's the thing, the kids section had a little step stool that if you stepped up over it, you could see into the video game section. And I could see
Oh.
the owner unlocking the area and picking up a Wii as well as a copy of Wii Music and Mario Kart Wii. And to make matters worse, I went looking for it in the house and I found it. And instead of just taking the fact that a Hastings bag was there, I cut the bag open. I still cringe thinking about that because now I realize what I'd done. But again, I know I was a kid. I know I was young. But yeah, so that's the story in a nutshell.
Okay. Okay.
So
Well,
yeah, but then after that, I opened the Wii. I got a few more games on during Hanukkah and during the Christmas time season. I got a few more games. My parents were really cool about it. They understood. They're like, dude, we get it. We were there too at one time. So they were really awesome about it. And so yeah, it all worked out.
very cool.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's wild. But anyhow, that's probably the biggest memory of me owning, video games and whatnot. But one other thing I remember, did you ever get in like debates about like what you thought which console was? I know you didn't have a multitude of consoles, but did you ever like have conversations where you thought like, okay, this one might be cool, this one might be a bit superior? And did you ever have like just kind of like talking, just like shooting the shit basically just about your what you thought of what you owned and getting into conversations with other people about what they had?
I did end up having a lot of consoles after the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
I had every console except for anything Microsoft. So everyone I hung out with also only really had PlayStation.
Oh,
So
okay.
there weren't really any debates regarding, which console was better than the other. But
Mhm.
I do remember people talking, at least in college, about the specific games that they had growing up when they were kids, and
Mhm.
me sort of feeling envious because I didn't have that available to me.
Mhm.
Specifically, like you were saying earlier, Halo. I do remember feeling a certain type of way.
Yeah.
So there was never really a conversation or an argument or a debate on my end, but there definitely were conversations about what we wish we had. What about you?
100%. Oh, yeah, I had some of those conversations too, but again, a lot of the people I knew were either into the same things I had, or it was me telling people off saying Halo's awesome and this is why you suck.
Gotcha.
So it was a lot of those kind of conversations,
Gotcha.
more or less, and a lot of my friends were also Mario Kart fans, especially Mario Kart Wii. Mario Kart Wii was one of the most fun Wii games I think I've ever played. That was a game
Mm.
I played hours upon hours upon hours of on the Wii, was
Okay.
Mario Kart Wii. Mario Kart Wii was like my heaven, basically. That, and then eventually my parents also got me Guitar Hero Aerosmith because I'm a huge fan of the band Aerosmith. So
Okay, okay.
so that was it. And then of course they got me Legends of Rock, and then that led into my whole Guitar Hero and Rock Band phase.
Gotcha, gotcha. Why does the console rivalry of the early 2000s feel more intense and nostalgic to us compared to, like, say, the current gaming climate?
To be honest with you, I feel like it's for a couple of reasons. So the biggest thing I feel like was there was a lot the competition I feel like was the biggest thing. Everybody liking a certain set of games that were only offered on a certain platform, I think was one of the
Yeah,
biggest things for that. Again, like I said, the playground debates, trying to figure out, what do I like as a gamer? And
yeah,
because it was so diverse of like, okay, PlayStation is mostly for, the pro gamers and the people who like the typical, the games where you want to earn achievements and trophies
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. Xbox obviously was kind of in the similar vein, but I feel like it was more kind of the relaxed version of that. And it was kind of like, yeah, you can be casual, you can be a hardcore gamer. And guess what? We'll offer a lot of the same titles on our console. So if you are a
Yeah.
Halo fan, if you are a fan of anything exclusively to Xbox, we will give that to you, but we will also give you the majority of what, some of these other consoles offer as well.
There are some exclusive perks that, as kids we were just sold, and it makes sense. It was a good marketing tactic.
Exactly. And then of course PlayStation had their own exclusives as well. I think God of War for a while was a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah, Little
You
Big
couldn't
Planet as well, which I
Little Big
mentioned earlier.
Planet, yep, was a
Yeah.
PlayStation exclusive. Uncharted was a PlayStation
Uncharted.
exclusive. So a
Yeah.
lot of these games, you weren't going to find them on the Xbox either, but I feel like because the vast majority of the library was interchangeable, that is one of the big reasons. And then with
That's a good point, yeah.
Nintendo, they were on their own thing, and I feel like they eventually got some of those games, but they were also trying to say we're different and this is why we are different. And
I
so
see.
that was one of the big things I see, especially with Nintendo. And I think it really gave a lot of people something to talk about and to bond over. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is like, like you were saying, most of your friends were PlayStation fans, or they were Wii fans, or whatever consoles you owned. Most of the time your friends were kind of an extension of that at the same
Yeah.
time. Um,
Exactly.
and then you had like interest, but then you always had that one other person who, no, I have Xbox, and this is why I play Xbox, and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
you have all these different realms, of people, and I feel like now, especially the current gaming climate, it kind of feels the same. But the thing is, it there's no real like certain platform out there that's going to demand your loyalty, and it's not
Yeah.
necessarily, you don't have these same kind of conversations all the time because now everyone has access to pretty much any type of game that they want to play. So I
Well,
feel like, yeah.
I was going to say, as we mentioned earlier, that it sort of shifted from the console being the identity of the
Mhm.
person's gaming to the game itself being the identity of the
Exactly.
person's gaming. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's exactly where I see, especially modern gaming going to. And
Yeah.
even though the console wars isn't really a thing anymore, I feel like again, it was something that it gave something people to talk about, but also more importantly, I feel like it created senses of community. And
So,
it,
on that note, though, I know you mentioned the word camp a couple of minutes ago,
okay,
or a segment or two ago, and I
sure,
was
yeah,
wondering, with your loyalty to your gaming system when you were
sure.
younger, did you ever feel a sense of betrayal when a favorite game of yours or something moved to a different platform, or say when friends would talk about the perks of their own personal gaming system?
I don't know if I would say so much a series or a sense of betrayal when a series moved to a rival platform, but I will admit when I learned that Halo was an Xbox exclusive, especially when I only owned a Wii and a PS2, I was pretty upset. And the
That
reason
makes
being is
sense.
because I loved it. I played on my friends' consoles, I played at my cousins, I played at Hastings, and I loved Halo. I felt a sense of betrayal that I couldn't play Halo at home just because I didn't own an Xbox 360.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
so,
Okay.
and I think it's kind of mostly the reason because, obviously I loved it and I didn't want to buy a new console after my folks already bought me a couple of consoles,
That's fair.
and I
It adds
didn't,
up.
it adds up and I really didn't want to just go to them and say, "Hey, I want the Xbox 360" after they had just bought me a few other things. It was probably a few years after my PlayStation 2 experience that I finally did get a 360. And yes, my folks helped with it, but I did help out as well with it. It was something that I did. Even though they got it for me as a birthday gift, I actually used, a few. I bought what was the game? Halo Reach, because they did this
Mm,
thing where they had the release of it, and then they asked me. They said, "Hey, we got you this. We just asked that you pay for this." And you got to figure Halo Reach was not a cheap game when it first came out either.
okay.
As most video games are, and so they said you pay for the games, and that was the agreement. And pretty much every Xbox game I bought was paid for by me.
Oh, very nice. Okay. See, even then, nostalgic gaming consoles sort of taught us a sense of responsibility too, because not only are we working for those skins or those perks, but we're also working for our games now. Even more
Yeah.
so. I'm not
Hmm.
saying people don't work for their games right now,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
so if you could go back to
Yep.
any of these consoles that you owned or ones that you didn't own, like the night that they released,
Yep.
which would it be?
Probably any launch between the year 2000 and 2001. Those were huge launches for any of those consoles, the PS2, the Xbox, or the GameCube. As much as the GameCube underperformed,
Mm.
those were mass events. I mean, there's still footage out there of people waiting in line playing their PS1s, waiting for the PlayStation 2 to come out. And the cool
Oh
thing
yeah.
about it, too, was you have all of these elements, but at the end of the day, there wasn't anybody who was saying like, "Oh, guess what? I got the console first," or like, "Oh man, you got the first one." This is. There were people
Yeah.
when you would buy the first one, yeah, they were cheering you, they were high fiving you, they were like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go, man, have fun with that thing," and
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And the next person in line, "Yeah, dude, congratulations, man!" And you're just waiting in line to get yours, and then when you get yours, good job, dude, congratulations. And that's really how it was. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, the part of the experience I feel like is lost as well. You don't really see that anymore. Now when new consoles come out, it's just, oh, I gotta go pick it up. You pick it up, and people are just like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, dude," and whatnot. And
Yeah.
there's not really a whole lot of, so that's what I mean by that sense of community. Back then I feel
Hmm.
like, everyone kind of celebrated together. They all realized that we have something in common together and we're going to celebrate it. And I'm not saying it's not celebrated now. It's just it's so common that now
True.
it's kind of overlooked in a sense.
S- Because of the current day and age, how do you think the internet and other digital storefronts change the way we discover the new and beloved games that, children or younger people from this generation now love, compared to the physical retail battles of the past, like waiting in line at GameStop or, watching a friend play the PS1 during a PS2 release?
Well, I think it's changed mostly because now you're not necessarily just waiting for something to release. You're getting to demo it, months in advance
Yeah.
before the game even drops. And
Yeah.
when you got to play some of these games in like a GameStop or in, a local Target or Walmart or a
Yeah.
Sears, that had these setups, I feel like, it felt exclusive. You felt like, "Oh, I'm getting to actually try this for the first time." And guess
Yeah.
what? I don't need to be a part of a group or membership in order to do it. Now I feel like let's say you want to demo a game, you have to be a part of like, like PlayStation, like PSN, or you have to be a
Yeah.
part of a certain membership that gives you access to it. And you almost kind of have to be
Yeah.
chosen in a sense. And so I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like the biggest change is that now instead of it being, okay, we can kind of include the general public. It's kind of like it's very exclusive to only those set of people that may be the most hardcore gamers and maybe the most
Yeah.
dedicated now are getting not only just demos to play new games, but getting exclusive perks and getting
Yeah.
exclusive items in the game, that not many other people are gonna have, whereas back in
Hmm.
the day everyone kind of had access to it. You just had to work toward it. You just had
Yeah.
to unlock it. You just had to achieve it. And yeah, nowadays you can pay for it, but sometimes now if you have the highest score on a game, or maybe you have the highest points or this many trophies, guess what? We'll give this to you for free,
Yeah.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So that's also where I feel like there's a big change there.
Yeah. Going back to the way that we discover it specifically, I remember video game advertisements in back in the day where the company would talk to you directly as a consumer. And now it feels like they use like a third party intermediary system, whether it's TikTok, an influencer, a Twitch streamer, whatever, to sell you the game. So now it's not the company talking to you, it's the company talking to you vicariously through somebody with clout or a persona or a celebrity. So it feels very impersonal and it feels very formulaic.
Yeah.
Um, and like you were saying, you can't test the latest game at Walmart. You can't test the latest game at Target because they
Yeah.
don't want you to. They want you to buy it first.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's just kind of one of the biggest shames in that regard. But
Yeah.
to kind of round out this section, I kind of want to look just real quick before we round out this episode at kind of the idea of if the console war is truly over. And kind of when we look at the first thing, it's kind of like how has the rise of cross-platform changed the way we view traditional boundaries between rival consoles? And really, I'm gonna just come out and say it, there really are no boundaries now.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not
it,
relevant.
it's not relevant anymore because now everything is available to everyone.
Yeah.
And really, kind of when we look at it, it's kind of like, yeah, platforms now like Steam, which give you access. It's basically a streaming service for video games. Um, and then now you don't have a need for separate consoles and separate games and separate markets. Now it's kind of like it's all kind of there. And I feel like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I feel like also you kind of lose that tangible like interconnectivity of community that was kind of there. I mean, yeah, you still have community between games, between stuff you like, but it's a lot more narrow and a lot more individualistic now
Yeah.
versus I feel like back in the day where it was more group and communal, if that makes
S-
sense.
So then where do you think that leaves us for the future of console gaming? Seeing how much it's already shifted within the past 10 to 15 years, where do you think the focus is going to go towards playing with anyone, regardless of their machine, or where do you see it going?
Um, I really see it moving toward an era where it's going to be more focused now on multiplayer and battle royale modes, which is something we've seen a
Yeah.
lot. And it's going to be less focused on story modes like campaign or like things like
Mm,
special ops or like arcade mode and stuff
yeah.
like that. And I think, don't get me wrong, multiplayer's always been a big thing. And I think multiplayer always will be a big thing. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's a bad thing. I love multiplayer just as much as I love the campaigns. But the multiplayers now are becoming more about can you get in based on your rank versus can
Yeah.
you just play based on the fact that you have access to online gameplay,
Yeah.
and I think that's the big shame because I feel like a lot of people actually get their strengths through multiplayer by playing harder opponents and learning different tricks and figuring out what works for you versus
Yeah.
now, oh, you can only play people of a certain rank or era, and that's something I don't really care for because
Yeah.
now it now feels like you're just gatekeeping to keep weak players out when in reality that's how a lot of us got good at playing games.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely soul crushing when you haven't been able to rank up in over a year. Let me tell you
Yeah,
that.
and exactly. And to be honest with you, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things like No real fun conversations anymore. We talked about this a lot, but I also see really no creativity of how games are marketed. They're just kind of put out as
Hmm.
advertisements, and now they're really just social media blurbs or maybe an influencer talking about the game and what makes it big. And then people
Yeah.
kind of go off of that versus instead of having these creative commercials that really look
Yeah.
into what each service offers. And that's the other big thing. So I
Yeah.
really think going forward, we're going to see a lot more individualistic gaming, and I think we're going to see a lot of more digital and online gaming.
Yeah. I don't really know what's to come. Obviously, no one does, but I want and I hope and I believe inevitably we will circle back to either mobile handhelds like the
Hmm.
PSP,
Same, yeah,
like the Switch, and perhaps even a greater demand for PC LAN gaming again.
yep,
Um, PC and LAN gaming, perhaps even more plug and plays for affordability. Socially,
yep.
you see a change with other modern day conveniences that are actually retransitioning back to a more tangible and arguably timeless means of experiencing things, which is something that we've brought up many times
Oh
throughout the
yeah.
podcast, and throughout pretty much almost every episode of Rewind Room. An example being music streaming and the resurgence of vinyl.
Mhm.
Another thought, that we could go towards is you see streaming services now like Netflix utilizing cell phones as their own remote controllers, sort of like a
Mhm.
makeshift controller
Yeah.
for new gaming features. If you go on Netflix right now, there are a plethora of games that you can actually play through your phone, which is
Oh yeah.
pretty cool. Maybe streaming services will also have a foot in the race against
Oh
companies like PlayStation and Xbox.
yeah,
So
yeah. Who
perhaps that's an
knows?
outlet.
Yeah, who knows? It's really kind of uncertain where
It is.
all of this is going to go. But to be honest with you, my friend, the only thing I hope for the future is that, it still invites a sense of community, which I think it still
100%.
has the potential to do, and I think it still will do. And more importantly, still allow people to bond over something that they love, as well as being
Yeah.
able to be individualistic in your choice.
Yeah.
Those are the only two things I really hope for.
Yeah.
But
Also, the hope of it being fun again rather than I
yes.
need to rank up or I want to
Mhm.
be a professional insert
Yes.
game
Bring
player
back the LAN
and
party.
yeah, yeah, bring
Yes.
back just a chill night where you can just hang with your friends and play a game without someone,
Mhm.
rage
Yes.
baiting you, forcing you to throw your controller at the TV and ruin the
Oh
night,
my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Get rid of that. Bring back just the fun game night when you could just sit
Yeah.
down, crack open some Doritos, crack open a Red Bull, and have hours and hours of fun.
Yeah.
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 Well, my friend,
Exactly.
I think that's another episode in the books.
Oh man, oh man, oh man.
Good stuff. Good stuff. But any final thoughts real quick before I take us out?
Uh, Only thing I have to say is that after work, I am gonna come play video games.
I hear you. I think I might actually try and boot up my Master Chief collection on Halo again soon
There
because I
you
haven't
go.
played in a while, and I still need to finish the Halo 2 remastered. So, or not Halo 2, Halo 3, I should say, not remastered, but Halo 3 on there. So, anyhow, that brings us to the end of our trip through the trenches of the console wars. Whether you were a Nintendo loyalist, a PlayStation pioneer, or an Xbox early adopter, there's no denying the rivalry of our youth shaped the way we play today. Before we power down, make sure to find us on YouTube. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and hit that little bell so you never miss a notification from us and you can be notified about all our videos that we're going to be posting soon. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and Outcast, and wherever you get your podcasts at. Until next time, my name is John,
And I'm Ramona.
and we will catch you on the rewind. Take care, everyone.